would be marketing to us. But no, you'd be wrong.
Well, but you see, here's the situation with that. They've already got us. Now we've got the money. So they don't need to market to us because what are we going to do now that we have the money? We're going to go buy motorcycles. We're going to go buy movie tickets. We're going to go to the video game arcade, and suddenly we've got $5 to blow on the video game. So they don't need to sell us anything. It's already sold. Now we can actually buy the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Damn it. I hate it when you make sense.
I know. Hey, I heard this.
Go ahead and keep talking because I'm going to start recording.
Okay, I'll clean up. Okay. So I heard this the other day. I heard the explanation. Wait, did you say stop talking or keep talking?
No, you can keep talking. I'm just going to start.
Okay. So I heard, have you guys heard the description exennial?
Yes, it's the worst word on this planet. They need a better word.
Yes, they do. But here's the funny thing about it. They were describing exennials, and I guess the word was coined a couple years ago, but it's come to prominence in the last couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, somebody posted something in like the New Yorker or one of those places.
Yeah. I was actually reading this to Sharon the other day, and I took a survey to see how exennial I am.
Okay.
Oh dear, I didn't know that existed.
Can you just find that on Google or something?
Yeah.
How exennial are you?
I'm apparently very exennial, but
oh Jesus!
we kind of, because my brother was there with us, and as I'm taking this survey, we're talking about it, and as I'm taking this survey, I'm like, you know what? Apparently, and they didn't know what the name was, and I had forgotten it, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh yeah, apparently we are the micro generation known as the exennials. And his first response was also my first response. I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with that name as long as it comes with a mutant power.
Well, sure.
There it is.
Because if it's going to be
with a lot of things if they come with a mutant power.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to need power to go along with that. And the funny thing, before I started taking the survey and realizing how dumb this was my interest in it was, okay, so the span of time for this micro generation is the Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm okay with that. Like, it's from 77 to 83.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm all right with that. But then I started to take the survey, and the survey just was kind of stupid.
Okay.
No.
Well, right. I mean, it was an online survey, so
right.
I had to whack myself in the head with a hammer a few times to be able to, fully comprehend what I was doing.
I just think it's really funny that you were talking about it with Brian, because I don't know if I told either of you, but Will transferred from Libertyville to Vernon Hills, so now we work together every day.
Okay.
We were talking about this today at work.
Mm-hmm.
This exennial bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a weird word. It sounds so more contrived than, I don't know, than anything. I don't know. I know we alwaase strive to label the generations, and we try to give them traits, and I don't know. So
when I heard it on the radio, I say the radio, when I was listening to a BBC News podcast, they were talking about it, and they said, and stay tuned to find out if you're an exennial. And then they came back and they were like, so if you still have a first generation iPod and have a Hotmail account or Hotmail address, you're an exennial. And I'm like, well, check, Pat's in.
And see, that was the funny thing, because Sharon still has a Hotmail account.
Okay.
I actually thought of you when I was going through the survey, and I just kind of looked at her before I read that question out loud. And I said, okay, well, obviously here we go. And I looked at her and I said, you still have a Hotmail account? And she's like, oh, I know you're trying to get me to get rid of it, but yes, I do. Yeah. My brother still has a Hotmail account too. So
yeah,
my wife has one. She uses it for junk mail, but she still has it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I still have it. It's like I said, I've got my Gmail account. My Hotmail is linked through it or whatever. But yeah, man.
So I don't mind. I guess I don't mind being part of this little micro generation thing, but the name is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
If I don't get a superpower to go with it, if I'm not an X-Men character with it, then I don't like it.
Got it.
The only thing that makes me happy about this is the people will stop trying to classify me as an early millennial. I am not one of those assholes.
Well, yeah, see, apparently, depending on who you ask, my sister Well, yeah. My sister is a millennial. And depending on who you ask, Sharon is too.
Okay, so what is a millennial? Right. Because I thought that was someone born in the new millennium.
Apparently it's 80.
If only it were that simple.
Yeah. Apparently they end it around, and depending on which chart you look at, because
they're all a little different.
Right, because somebody at one point referred to my age as millennial. Oh no, you didn't.
Right, me too. I'm February of '81. I am not a millennial. Go jump in a lake.
Right.
But.
And and all these labels and everything else. Like I'm saying all this not to necessarily badmouth millennials.
Oh, I will.
You will. Okay. Because nobody. I mean, you're categorizing an entire group of people.
Oh, sure. It's no different. It's no different when you're categorizing zodiac signs and how they react. Oh, right. And there's always people that are a little bit of both. But
right.
There certainly is something about the generation after us that drives me up a wall.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Because they're not us. Why don't they just call it the Spielberg generation? Why don't they just call it that?
There's a name to get behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I don't mind. I don't mind the renaming or the relabeling of the groups. You know what I'm saying? As we go, because it's almost like well, I think you guys that CNN is doing those specials on the decades, right? The 60s, the 70s.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it was in one of those, or maybe it was something I was reading about that. They said, it's hard. We love to categorize things all so nice and neat, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. But in reality, it never really goes that by the day. It never really goes by that. You really have to look back and say, well, this trend started in the 60s, but continued into the, and so on and so forth. And so I can see that where, they're trying to categorize our generation. And, the time that we were all sitting there in high school, okay, maybe that wasn't the best to categorize our generation because so much was in flux. Well, now we're approaching the age of, the demographic of we don't care about you anymore. So now you can look back and say, okay, now we're seeing some trends, and yeah, there is this subgroup that fits in, these years and all that. So I guess I don't mind the different categories they apply to us. But like you said, as long as they, apply it, some word like exennial, we just need power, a mutant power. Then I'd be fine with it.
Exactly. Well, you know what? It's funny, Pat, you are dead on, because one of my favorite conversations about music, when it comes to decades, music from 1990, like 1990 itself, is not 90s music.
Right.
Like, look some of that up. There's some good music there. And the 90s are kind of an ugly wasteland when it comes to certain kinds of music.
Yeah.
That's true. But I was one of the first people to kind of badmouth 90s music, but then I made the mistake of creating a 90s playlist on Spotify the other day.
Oh, there's some great stuff.
There was some good stuff.
Yeah.
But certain types of music just died in the 90s, and it's a shame.
Yeah. Well, Tammy and I were talking about television shows, and I said, man, during the 90s, I said, what did you watch? And did you watch this? Did you watch that? And she was like, no. And she's like, well, what shows did you watch? And I'm like, thinking of all these 80s shows, but then I'm like, for the 90s? Well, I watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Right.
And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and she says, is that all you watched? And I'm like, yeah. And then she started listening. She was like, well, what about Family Ties? What about, and I'm like, oh yeah. But I guess I always thought of that as an 80s show.
Well, okay, so bring it back to something we're going to talk about real soon, Star Trek The Next Generation. What do you consider the decade that was in?
Right. I mean, yeah, I would have thought 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But it started in 87.
Tammy asked about West Wing. And it was like, oh yeah, I guess that was technically a 90s show.
Yep, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go back and look at I'm gonna get myself in trouble. But you even look at the lighting and the way they use the camera. It seems to have a softer edge to it, just visually than.
Oh God, yes.
That's a little more technical than what we like to do on the podcast.
I know, man. I've been trying to step up. I've been trying to step up.
So I listen to the West Wing Weekly podcast.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else does.
Off and on.
It's awesome. Josh Molina is great, and his host is his co-host, the guy who like runs the show, is awesome.
Is that still Ritchie Valens?
That's the guy.
Mazuka.
Did we ever tell you when the West Wing Weekly first started, we got retweeted by them?
I think you did. That's what made me go check them out, if I remember correctly.
That's what made us hit the big time.
Yeah, Jeff is a huge fan of that podcast.
So those guys, they talk a lot about how the way they shot the West Wing and the way they did the West Wing just doesn't happen today. Like that show does not get made that way today.
Mm-hmm.
For hundreds of reasons, but some of them technical, some of them cultural. But it's just very interesting to hear, to see that and to hear that it's not just, people who actually know what they're talking about say it too.
Mm-hmm. What? Hey, if you don't mind me asking, what episode are they on?
Oh, wow. Hold on, let me look. Because you know what? I think I have it on my phone. Because okay, so I'm a total dork. So this is something you all just need to accept. So you know that Star Trek podcast I told you about, Pat, The Greatest Generation?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's that, and then there's Mission Log. Mission Log is run out of Roddenberry Entertainment.
Okay.
So, Greatest Generation started after Mission Log hit Next Generation already, because Mission Log started way back with the original series.
Got it.
But because Greatest Generation does 2 episodes a week, they've caught up.
Okay.
So I've been listening to Mission Log, which is like the serious one, and then Greatest Generation, which is like the comedy spoof podcast, in tandem whenever they hit an episode of Next Gen.
Okay.
But Greatest Generation has caught up to Mission Log, so I'm in this weird limbo stage now where I'm out of podcasts to listen to because I'm waiting for Mission Log to catch up.
I see.
So now I've finally caught up on my West Wing Weekly.
There we go.
Got it.
So West Wing Weekly is on Season 3, Episode 12, The Two Bartletts.
Oh. The what was it? The fuzzy professor and the cutting academic, right?
Exactly.
This is while they're prepping for the debates.
Right. What I love about this podcast is the guest stars they get. Like they've had everybody. They've had Aaron Sorkin, Allison Janney, Richard Schiff, Brad Whitford's been on a couple times. Like, because these guys have like real pull.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Cool.
I tried to get Patrick Swayze to be on our Dirty Dancing one next week, but I couldn't get a hold of him.
Well, you didn't contact Whoopi Goldberg first.
Yeah, well, that would have helped.
She's the only one who's going to be able to get a hold of him right now.
Yeah.
No kidding.
What year was that movie?
Which one?
Ghost.
Uh,
Is it 90?
I think so.
Might be 90.
I know it's later. I just don't know how much later.
Oh, a couple years. I'm still, like I said, I still got the countdown clock going for Batman.
Yeah, it's 90.
It was on
so
the
you know
other,
what?
Batman Returns was on the other day.
Yeah.
And I sat down and watched a little of it. Not as much as I wanted to, but
See, I'm not a fan of Batman Returns.
and all the Michael Keaton Batmans have a special place in my heart.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about that one I just did not like. I kind of go...
Oh, a lot of the stuff in Returns is bad now that I've seen it again recently. But Michael Keaton is Batman any day of the week. Which honestly made me love Spider-Man because seeing him in that role was fantastic.
Oh, and we're going to go see it tomorrow, so I still haven't seen it yet.
So good.
I still haven't. I've been hearing just amazing things.
It was so good. It was awesome.
Cool.
Real quick, because we're like, what are we, like 15 minutes into the podcast already?
Yeah, all right, man. Let's rock it. I'll stop blabbing.
Well, no. I'm just going to throw this out here. So, welcome. They've been listening to us gab for 15 minutes.
I feel bad for them.
Well, no, I mean, they came here of their own volition, so.
I suppose that's true.
Bamba.
There you go. So this is the 30-something movie podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This time around, we are going to be talking about La Bamba here in a few minutes. Couple of new movie news things real quick, and then we'll get on into La Bamba. This kind of starts our month. Originally, this was going to be our month of like music and artistic movies and things like that. But then we kind of realized that there's some other stuff we want to talk about, and there weren't a whole lot of like really great music and artistic movies necessarily that would have interested enough people. So we kind of dropped a few of those. So we've got La Bamba, we've got Dirty Dancing, and then for the rest of the month, we are going to be throwing out our worst of 1987 episode. We're also going to try to work on, we got to figure out when we're going to do that, to do a Star Trek The Next Generation.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Where we just talk about the entire thing. So we may need to find a time that we can sit down for 3 or 4 hours.
So let me just before we go, should I start assembling top 10 favorite episodes? Should I be like, who's my favorite character? What kinds of things do I need to have?
Why don't I'll put together a Google Doc.
Okay.
And
which character did you most want to be?
Worf. I'm sorry,
which character did you most identify with? Because they're probably different.
Yeah.
Riker.
Was that identifying with, or who would you want to be?
No, I think the one that let's see.
And
that's a tough one.
And I don't know how many of us watch them.
I think I would most want to be Riker.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Maybe I most identify with.
Now, some of this is from the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Some of this is from the Next Generation podcast I listened to. But think about this. Think about who you identified with when you were watching these new.
Well, right.
And then think about who you might identify with now.
Watching him new, I would have identified with Riker. Watching it now, Picard. Totally.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Really, you Riker even then? I mean, I wanted to be Riker, but I don't think I identified with Riker.
Yeah, I don't know if I identified with. I probably identified with somebody like Chief O'Brien, because you only see him every once in a while. He's stuck in the transporter room.
I was thinking like Geordi, because he was so awkward for me anyway.
Yeah.
Or young Wesley Crusher, the boy.
Yeah. I didn't realize so many people hated him.
Oh, people God, there is. Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, like people like the guy is not a nice guy? Or is this like a Jar Jar Binks thing?
No, like
it's like a Jar Jar Binks thing.
What?
They hated Wesley because he was such a sniveling little brat, which is true.
Yeah, but all 13-year-olds are, or 15-year-olds. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, but this was a 13-year-old on Star Trek, which unfortunately gets magnified. Will Wheaton hated the character of Wesley Crusher as he got older. I mean, there's some of his podcast stuff is great about how he went through a bout where he wanted nothing to do with Star Trek and nothing to do with that character, and he's come around since, and he's realized that it's part of my career. This is not something I'm going to ever hide from, and he shouldn't. But there was definitely a time he loves talking about how he hated those sweaters, and they were pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we probably need to put together, because I started to put together a list. I think it's just on paper now, but I'll put up a Google Doc for our 150th show on the movie music. So I'll put together Google Doc.
Yeah, because we got we got the worst of, we got the movie music show, we got the Next Gen show, we got big ones coming.
Which I got to say, I'm having a hard time, because I'll pull back the curtain here a little bit. I try to find most of these movies at the library because I'm not willing to and don't have the budget to pay for finding all them. Really hard time finding these worst of movies.
Yeah.
I was able to find, I got Interlibrary Loan. I got Jaws the Revenge came in today. At the library. But other than that, I found a website. I found a website, and this one's in English. It's not a Korean one. But I did find a website where I can watch the entirety of Leonard Part 6.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if nice is the right word, but
oh no, I think it is.
Yeah. And I'm having a really hard time finding. The only place I can find Ishtar is on iTunes, and I'm not paying the $14.99 to purchase Ishtar to be able to watch it for the podcast. So
no, that seems wrong.
We'll see how that goes. And I guess there's a Canon film called Tough Guys Don't Dance, and a Madonna movie called Who's That Girl? So apparently, somehow I'm going to have to track these down. If anybody listening happens to know a good place to find these where I don't have to necessarily spend money to find them, whether it's like at a local library or something like that, then I'm all for it. But yeah, these have been a little tough to find. But we're going to do it. We'll make it happen.
Got it.
All right. Well, should we jump on into some new movie news stuff? And then I don't really have a whole lot with new movie news.
Yeah, Spider-Man. Woohoo!
You mentioned Spider-Man. Yeah, I'm going to go see Spider-Man with the kids tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. I did hear, and that's one of the reasons that we're taking all the kids, taking everybody, Nora and John Ezra, was that I heard from several people that this is probably the most kid-friendly Spider-Man so far.
Yeah, I didn't flinch on anything where I was like, ooh, and there were kids in the audience. Now, I'm the first guy to admit I'm the guy without kids, so chances are I'm not going to catch everything that a parent would, but...
Yeah. But, I mean, we just recently watched Age of Ultron, so they've seen that one. Even Nora watched it, and we just the other day, when everybody was over, we watched Independence Day.
Ah, yes.
I figured if you've seen Independence Day and the kids have seen the Avengers movies, we're fine for Spider-Man Homecoming.
Independence Day. I know it's probably, it's certainly not the best film ever, but God, what a fun movie.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It was a lot of fun. And either it's been a really long time since I've seen it, or the DVD copy we had some scenes added back in that were not in the original.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Because there were some scenes I don't remember seeing.
So, well, that's for later. Never mind. I have a comment about that, but that's for next week with Dirty Dancing.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, before we jump into our new cannot talk tonight, and I have not even had as many podcast juices as you had, Bo.
Well, we'll see how that goes, won't we?
only on my first right now. On Twitter, before we get to some of the new movie stuff, on Twitter, I had put up a poll on Twitter asking people, because we're actually recording for both movies. We'll pull back the curtain a little bit there. We are recording for both movies, La Bamba, and then right after this, we'll record for our Dirty Dancing show next week. But I did ask the people. I went out to the public and I asked the people, which is the better movie? Is Dirty Dancing a better movie, or is La Bamba a better movie? Which one do you think won?
Well, I think Dirty Dancing, but...
Okay. Pat, what do you think?
What do I think, or what do I think? I think I'm...
What do you think won in the poll, and what would you have voted for?
Well, I think the poll, I'm guessing Dirty Dancing won because it's iconic. And like Tammy said before I came down here, she's like, is there a woman out there that does not like that movie? That was her take. Now, so I could see that winning in the poll. What movie is the better movie? I don't know. I'm going to play the apples and oranges card. Same card I play every week. So I think I'll leave it at that.
My wife loves Dirty Dancing, so I sort of agree with Tammy on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, according to the poll, 43% voted Dirty Dancing and 57% voted La Bamba.
Really?
No way.
So La Bamba.
That surprises me.
La Bamba went out in the poll as to which one was a better movie.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
But yeah, so we'll get in the whole Dirty Dancing thing next week. But all right, so real quick before we get into La Bamba, is there anything else new movie news wise?
I guess I would just say, and this is totally coming off trailers before Spider-Man. Dark Tower looks interesting.
Okay, I've been seeing more about that.
Jumanji is going to be funny because our guy's in it. The Rock's gonna be good. The Rock and Jack Black. Can it really be bad?
Nope.
And then there's a quick Justice League hit in front of Spider-Man, which is, it gets you kind of fired up.
Okay. Different from the one that was in front of Wonder Woman?
Oh, see, now you're asking me. I was running late to Wonder Woman, so I'm not sure. I'm assuming because it was a quick hit. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was a quick 30-second guy, so I don't think.
The Wonder Woman one, I think, was like a 2-minute deal.
Oh, no. Maybe it was longer and I just wasn't paying attention, but this seemed pretty quick.
Okay.
So it's nothing new then.
Okay. Dressed like a bat. I dig it.
Exactly. Right. The whole thing where he goes, "You're the Batman." That was cool.
Yeah. What's your superpower? I'm rich.
Yeah, that was good too.
Maybe that I would be. Hey, you know what? I would be fine if that was my mutant power as an exennial. I'd be fine.
Totally. I'm rich.
You could just shoot money out of your hands.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. No, knowing my luck, it's going to be like wheat pennies that shoot out of my hand.
Hey, pennies.
Yeah.
And there was a trailer for the new Kingsman also, which I thought was fun.
Oh, okay. I still have never seen the original, so.
Oh, you got to see it.
Okay.
I loved it. I think you will too.
Okay. All right. Well, I think if we don't have anything else, we might be able to talk a little bit more about Spider-Man: Homecoming. Maybe next week. Everybody will have seen it by then, or most of us will have seen it by then. So, we can talk about that. That'll be on one of our next shows, maybe the worst of or the Star Trek Next Generation show.
Woohoo!
Got it.
All right. Well, let's go on ahead and jump on into La Bamba here.
Great movie.
So that'll be interesting then, because the first thing Bo said when he jumped on here was it just me, or was that not a good movie?
Was that not a good movie, or was that not a good movie?
Not a good movie.
Oh, all right, cool.
All right, so we're gonna have knockdown, drag out. I'm gonna, you know what? Here, let's do this.
Well, it's nice to disagree on things.
I know. So, Bo, for the purposes of this episode, I'm gonna call you Bob.
Okay.
Pat, I'm gonna call you Ritchie.
Okay.
And those will be your names for this episode, and you guys can find it
out. Okay, that sounds good.
All right. So this time around, we are talking about La Bamba. Oh, very, very quickly, because we didn't do this whole spiel. We spoil the movies. If you don't want to be spoiled, where have you been in the last 30 years? So stop now, watch the movie, come back. There we go. All right. So this one, La Bamba, is the movie. It came out on July 24th, 1987, rated PG-13. It was 1 hour and 48 minutes. Director was Luis Valdez. He did Zoot Suit and the Cisco Kid TV movie. Producer on this one was Bill Borden, who did Desperado, Mission Impossible 3, Kung Fu Hustle, and Taylor Hackford, who originally was going to be the director of this movie, but ended up switching over, and Luis Valdez took over as the director. Taylor Hackford also produced The Devil's Advocate, Ray, and Proof of Life. Writer on this one was Luis Valdez, the director. Music for this one was by Miles Goodman, who died in 1996, and he also did the music for Little Shop of Horrors and Muppet Christmas Carol. Music was also done by Carlos Santana, who did Desperado, Apollo 13, and Zodiac. And then all of the Ritchie Valens music that was done was not recordings of his. It was done by the band Los Lobos. And so they did all of their Ritchie Valens performances that show up in the movie. Budget for this one was $6.5 million. Box office was $54.2 million in the U.S. Starring Lou Diamond Phillips as Ritchie Valens. He was in Young Guns, Courage Under Fire, and the TV series Longmire. Is it Essay or Assai? Might be Assai Morales. Played Bob Morales. He was in NYPD Boo. That was the Halloween version of NYPD. I am so it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since we recorded, and I guess I'm like really tongue-tied tonight and can't talk.
Yeah.
Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain. Red leather, yellow leather is what I'm currently wearing. Red leather, yellow leather. Okay.
All right, John, you got this. You own it.
Rosanna DeSoto, so the next time I screw up, we're just ending the podcast right there. Rosanna DeSoto played Connie Valenzuela. She was in Star Trek VI, Family Business, and Stand and Deliver. Elizabeth Pena, who died in 2014, played Rosie Morales. She was in The Incredibles, Rush Hour, and Transamerica. Danielle von Zernick played Donna Ludwig. She was in My Science Project, Under the Boardwalk. Joe Pantoliano played Bob Keane. He was in The Goonies, The Fugitive, The Matrix, and Memento. Rick Dees was Ted Quillen. He was in The Flintstone Kids and The Jetsons, the movie. Marshall Crenshaw played Buddy Holly. He was in Peggy Sue Got Married, and he performed on the soundtrack for Empire Records and Superman 3. Howard Huntsberry played Jackie Wilson. His only acting credit was in this movie, but he did in Ghostbusters 2 at the end when they play Higher and Higher. When they have the scene where like you've got the toaster is dancing around and they play the music and they put the slime in the toaster and it dances around. When they play it with the toaster, it's actual Jackie Wilson recording. When they play it later with the whole Statue of Liberty, getting it to walk through the city, that is Howard Huntsberry, the Jackie Wilson impersonator, recorded that version of it. So that's one of the only other movie things he's got going. Brian Setzer played Eddie Cochran. He was on the soundtrack for Stuart Little and The Mask. Stephen Lee, who died in 2014, played the Big Bopper. He was in War Games, Negotiator, and Burlesque. And Sam Anderson played Mr. Ludwig. He was in Perfect Strangers, Lost, and Forrest Gump. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave this a 96%. Audience gave it a 78%. The Variety staff from Variety magazine said La Bamba is engrossing throughout and boasts numerous fine performances. And Janet Maslin of the New York Times said, as Valens, Lou Diamond Phillips has a sweetness and a sincerity that in no way diminish the toughness of his onstage persona. The role is blandly written, but Mr. Phillips gives Valens backbone. Cinema Score gave it an A, and one of the awards for this one, it won the BMI Film Music Award for music for Miles Goodman and Carlos Santana. This one, Los Angeles teenager Ritchie Valens becomes an overnight rock and roll success in 1958 thanks to a love ballad called Donna that he wrote for his girlfriend whose parents didn't want her to date a Latino boy. But as his star rises, Valens has conflict with his jealous brother Bob and becomes haunted by a recurring nightmare of a plane crash just as he begins his first national tour alongside Buddy Holly. This is where the trailer goes. Trailer. This is the trailer song. It isn't very long. Okay. All right. So not a whole lot of background on this movie. I actually couldn't find a whole lot of, like a lot of times there's websites that have like making of and background stuff, and not a whole lot for this movie. So the only couple of things that I was able to find was more about the history of Ritchie Valens and his life and kind of some of the stuff that this movie was based off of. The 1957 plane crash at Ritchie Valens Junior High School, the one that you keep seeing in like the dream sequences, what he keeps having a nightmare about and he refers to, there was actually a plane crash above his junior high school when he was a kid, maybe just a year or two. Oh, it was 57, so it was about a year or two before this movie would have taken place. The wreckage actually fell on some of his best friends and killed them while they were in the playground at the junior high. So that's kind of what they were referencing when you kept seeing those planes crashing at the beginning of the movie and then the nightmares that he would have. And as they mentioned in this movie, he wasn't there because he was at his grandfather's funeral. But he did have, let's see, I think they said, they didn't give a number. Several students were killed. 74 were injured. And that was what caused him to have a fear of flying, ultimately. The only other thing I've got here for background is Ritchie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly were all killed in the plane crash on February 3rd, 1959, while on tour as part of the, what was it called? The Winter, I had it written down, but for some reason it's not here anymore. The Winter Dance, I think it was called, as part of their tour that they were on.
Mm-hmm. You mean it wasn't the Enchantment Under the Sea?
It was not the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, no. If it was, we could have gone back in time and prevented them from getting on the plane in the first place. And
exactly.
And then Eternia would be saved and everything would be fine. Gwildor could make a new key and, Mr. Miyagi could keep waxing on.
Thank you. I was waiting for that.
That's what I'm here for. All right. So
that's what you're here for.
Yes, among other things.
About time we figured that out.
Well, tonight I'm here for mispronouncing things and, making references to things that we did back in episodes 2 years ago. But that's kind of a love we have for each other here. All right, so let's get right on into the apparent disagreement we've got here. I've got a couple of other questions if we run out of things to say. But so Pat, was this the first time you ever watched it?
First, and I want to just say, so I gotta get something off my chest right away. S.A. Morales.
They have razors for that.
Yes, they do, but none of them. I haven't found one that's strong enough.
Okay.
The Morales, the one that played
a piece from his spaceship, and like a Kryptonian spaceship, and he lasers his eyes, and it bounces back, and it shaves.
Yes, that is an option. Okay, so Valens' older brother, so it was funny seeing that guy because I'm like, man, I've seen that guy in other stuff, and I'm racking my brain. And then it was like, I think he's been in NYPD Blue, he's been in Blue Bloods, and he was in the second season of Jericho. And each of those other roles is like an authoritarian, like law enforcement. Jericho, he was like a military, he was a major in the army, and just a very like noble, disciplined guy. And so this was like it was like, my gosh, is this the same guy? It was pretty funny. That was just kind of a.
My wife is a big Esai Morales fan.
Okay, how do you pronounce it?
She pronounces it Esai. I don't know if that's right.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because he was an attorney in the Caprica show. Caprica was kind of a spin-off of the newer Star Galactica, and he played an attorney in that too. So I guess he's always some kind of law enforcement.
Yeah,
he definitely seems to gravitate towards those. There's another show that Donna watched, and I'm gonna blank on what it is. But he was a lawyer or something in that too, and I think he's been in a couple things with Lou Diamond Phillips since this also.
Okay,
yeah.
They might be buddies or something because I think they've done a few things together.
Yeah, real good actor, and like I said, the characters he plays in these shows is always they're just real put together, class act, strong, noble people of the ones that I've seen him in, and this was kind of a, I guess that is a departure from this work, but I mean it was. That was just pretty crazy seeing him like this. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
You can continue with your questions.
Yeah. So for all three of us, then I think this is so this will be one of the first times in a while we've had a movie where this is the first time we've all seen it.
Yes.
Okay. Because Bo, you said it was the first time you had seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was my first time seeing it too. I mean, I've seen. My wife had the soundtrack, so I've seen the CD like sitting on a shelf somewhere in our house for years.
And I knew
I've never seen the movie.
Right, I knew of the movie's existence. I knew the story. I knew the history.
Yeah,
I had just never seen the movie.
Yeah,
I remember the movie. I remember in the video store the cover of it. Him like on stage with the guitar and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I remember that growing up.
All right, so let's just jump right into it then. First time seeing it, Bo. Before we started recording, you said didn't like it. And Pat, you came right out and said, that's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Bo, why don't we start with, you want to start with what you didn't like about it?
It started off so slow. So part of it is probably when I watched it. Admittedly, we've already pulled back the curtain, so I think I can say this.
Yeah.
Knowing we were recording both of these movies today, I had to plan when I was going to watch them. So the first time I saw this movie was immediately after finishing Dirty Dancing.
Okay.
And so that might have colored my judgment a little, if only because the other movie ends on such a high, but I felt like the first half hour is so slow. And maybe it's just the character development they needed to do didn't jive with me, or maybe it was, I think you said someone criticized the writing of the Ritchie Valens character, but Lou Diamond Phillips one-upped it.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't lock me in. The last hour, I would say, was better.
Mm-hmm.
But that first half hour, 40 minutes was a tough get. And if I was the type to just give in and I didn't have to watch it for a podcast, I might not have made it to the end.
Okay.
That being said, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
The end, like I said, the last hour was fantastic once he's touring and once he's doing all that. But that first little bit just didn't do it for me.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. I mean, the first little bit, I don't know if I felt it was slow. I mean, I can see how the first little bit is weaker than maybe the next parts of the movie. I mean, I do think that it set up several things that were kind of important to understand about Bob and about the family dynamic and all of that, and kind of where they're coming from and what it means for him to suddenly be thrust into celebrity and all the stuff that comes with that. So I don't know if I had as much of a problem with the beginning of the movie, but certainly, like you said, certainly that last hour of the movie was much stronger, and kind of I think that was holding my attention more than the first little bit had. All right, well, Pat, what did you like about it?
Well, so it's funny because I'll start off with the possible bombshell. Like, I could have used another 5 hours of this movie before the final hour. Like, I wanted to see what was he like as a kid? How, who was his dad? I mean, like, was he like, was he of Mexican descent? Or, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, because he talked in the movie like he didn't even speak Spanish. And, their names, they had like English sounding names, like even his brother, his name was Bob. So I'm just like, okay, so, how did that all fit in? He was, what's the family history? Where did he get involved in music? Like, I had all these questions that I kind of wanted to see developed. And, it didn't turn me off from the movie, but it was almost just like, it was like going too fast. Like, wait, I got dropped in the middle of this thing. Like, who is this person? And other than like La Bamba, the song, and I knew that he died in the plane crash, I knew nothing about Ritchie Valens. And after 5, 6, 7 minutes watching this movie, and I get what that movie critic was saying. I really thought Lou Diamond Phillips did a fantastic job. I mean, I'm not the one to be critiquing someone's acting skills, but I thought he really did a fine job with this, and that really sucked me in. And I read something that some review or something that just said, this movie wasn't supposed to be anything. Well, no, I'm misquoting. This movie was supposed to be about a celebration of his life and his music. That was kind of the goal of it. And so once I kind of got that in my mind, it was like, oh, okay, that's the piece of it that they were focusing on. They gave you enough to know that, he kind of struggled with the fame and his older brother was jealous. Okay, he was, he came from poverty and worked his way up. Okay, he dealt with some racism and he kind of overcame that. They give you just enough to advance the story about his music, and the tragic end that he lost his life before. I mean, my gosh, we're talking about before the music could continue, but he was a kid. He was 17. He didn't even get a chance to live his life. Right. But this really focused on some pretty fantastic music that he was able to create before he passed. So I got a little bit, I kind of just went the other way for maybe the same reasons that you guys weren't too keen on the opening stuff. I just was like, man, I don't know. I know next to nothing about this musician, about this person. I just want to know more. And so the only question I have now is, okay, how much of that was, kind of done with the Hollywood, how much of that was given the Hollywood treatment where, they fit these real characters into kind of cardboard cutouts? Or how much of that is, no, that's a pretty accurate, what they focused on, that's kind of accurate to how he grew up. That's kind of the question in my mind. I'd like to go get a bunch of books or watch a bunch of documentaries on the thing. But yeah, so that was why I liked it so much. That and the music was fantastic. That was just awesome.
The music was awesome.
Definitely. Sorry, I went a little long-winded there, but I had to put that bit in.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit this is not necessarily my musical time period that is the one I gravitate to most. Whereas when Sharon and I got married, we combined CD collections, and with her parents and her CD collection that she had that there were a lot of. Say there's a lot of 40s, 50s, some 60s stuff in there too, but there's a lot of some of the older rock stuff and some of the older country stuff. And it was not necessarily, I mean, I've heard some of these songs before, but I mean, and she had the soundtrack to this movie too, so she knew a lot of these anyway. But some of those older, the beginnings of rock and roll in the 50s, I'm not as familiar with. And so one of my questions that I was going to ask us tonight, and we don't have to start talking about that now, but I was trying to think of, okay, well, what artists around this time period are ones that I like and ones that I would listen to, more than just like the one-off song. And so I think maybe that's one of the reasons that this movie was more interesting to me, because it's not something that I felt like I already knew about.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the name Ritchie Valens, but I knew nothing about his life. I didn't even know he was one of the people that was on the plane crash.
That one I knew.
Okay.
Didn't know much about him, but I knew he was part of this insane.
Right. And I knew that the plane crash, the whole Buddy Holly, plane crash thing. I knew that that's what was referenced in The Day the Music Died in the Don McLean song.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that much, but I didn't know that Ritchie Valens was one of the people that was on the plane, and didn't know his. I didn't know he only. I think he was only recording for like 8 months.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew he was young. I didn't know he was that young.
Yeah.
I think
I didn't know.
Yeah, Pat, I don't know that I would have asked for 4 more hours of this movie, but I think it kept my attention enough.
Yeah.
It was not somebody that I was overly familiar with to begin with.
Yeah. I didn't know that he wrote the tune. I didn't know that he wrote the tune Donna.
Oh,
I was like, okay.
But my wife's name is Donna, so I have to know these things.
Well, I was going to say, is she a fan of that tune?
She is actually. A funny story. She also not a huge fan of the movie.
Okay.
So, for what that's worth. But I'm sitting here and I'm watching it, and she starts singing part of. It wasn't Donna. It was before that. He sang something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was now. She starts singing it out of the blue. I looked at her and I go, "You know this song?" She's like, "Apparently I do." Like, she didn't remember knowing the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She could sing it word for word. It was hysterical.
See, I remember, and again, all this stuff, I just remember listening to a whole lot of 104.3 with Dick Biondi.
Yeah.
And like, didn't Dick Biondi do the Friday Night 50s thing?
Sounds right.
I mean, amidst their other things, but man, yeah. Great stuff. So, sorry to interject, but yeah, I had to ask if Donna was a fan of the tune, Donna.
Oh, yeah. She is a big fan. My wife's a big fan of the song Donna. Anything with her name in it, she likes.
Nice.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's what held my attention was this was not somebody. I like Lou Diamond Phillips anyway, because I've seen him in several things more recently.
Yeah.
And, we show that we like to watch on Netflix is Longmire. I don't know if you guys have ever watched it or not.
It's
been recommended to me. Is it kind of like a Western deal?
It kind of. Longmire is Walt Longmire is a sheriff in is it Montana? It's either Montana or Wyoming, or a place that's a little bit more, you think of as like modern day frontier.
Mm-hmm.
But it's set in modern day, so it's not like a Western. And it's like a cop show. I mean, there's like, different episodes. There's, murders that happen, or there's investigations, and they've got to go figure out what's going on. And I like the show. I don't know, say it's too different from a lot of the other cop shows that you'll watch where they have to go investigate something. I mean, those are all kind of same kind of deal, but it's the supporting characters that are in the show. Katie Sackhoff is his deputy.
Okay.
And she's always fun. And Lou Diamond Phillips is the owner. He actually plays a Native American in the show, and he's the owner of a bar called the Prancing Pony. Mm-hmm. And he has a way that he answers the phone every time. It's something like, you've reached the perpetual soiree of the Prancing Pony. Like this, he has this whole spiel every time he answers the phone.
Yeah.
And Sharon and I have said, maybe when we answer the phone, we should just start doing that, because it sounds better than our voicemails messages.
Okay, so I've heard you talk about the show now a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that good.
We like it. We like it. Yeah.
Okay. It's one of those shows I've heard great things about. Mm-hmm. I didn't catch it when it first started, so I've been hesitant to jump in, but now I think I might have to look it up on Netflix and check it out, because
it's a fun show.
You are now the third or fourth person to recommend it, so I think I might have to actually do it.
I've got to echo what Bo's thoughts are exactly. John, you're like the third or fourth person to recommend it, so yeah, exactly what Bo said. +1 for Pat.
Yeah, I think
and Sharon likes it too, so let's be honest. That's right. Yeah.
I think there's like 4 seasons already, and I want to say they're at least going to do one more. And I want to say it's based off a series of books too, but I've never gone and read the books.
That sounds right. I remember when it first came out, it sounded like something we were going to check out, and then for whatever reason, we didn't. Whether it's the time it was on, whether it's, I don't know.
But and Lou Diamond Phillips is probably one of my favorite characters in that whole show.
Cool. It's kind of awesome in whatever he does. I've never really disliked his.
You know what? He's like, he can do bit parts. He can carry movies. He can carry shows. And I think he can do bad guy and good guy equally well.
I would agree. He's very versatile.
Yeah. Apparently the guy who won our contest over in England and we sent the cards off to him.
Oh, yeah.
Playing cards. He had, on Twitter, he had referenced a movie that he thought, if somebody liked Evil Dead, that he thought they might like this movie. It's like Evil Dead was a bad movie.
Yeah.
People might like this one. So he was kind of mentioning it on Twitter, and I happened to spot it, and I was like, well, I've never heard of this movie before. And it was called Demon Wind. And it was just as bad as he said it was going to be.
Okay, good. All right.
I went and found it. I think it was on YouTube. I went and I found it, and I watched. God bless me. I watched the whole thing.
Oh, good for you, John.
It was a bad movie with horrible special effects and all kinds of other stuff. One of the interesting things to come out of that, though, is I'm looking up this movie either on IMDb, and IMDb can't always be trusted, but I feel like it might have been in the credits at the end of the movie too. No, it might have been IMDb because I feel like it was an uncredited thing. That apparently one of the demons in this movie, one of the just like extras that played a demon, was Lou Diamond Phillips.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
There you go.
But the funny thing is, I think it came after this movie. I think it came after La Bamba. So it's not like he was a no-name, actor trying to make his way in Hollywood. It's like he'd already done several things, and maybe this was just a favor for a friend or something.
Yeah, or maybe he was passing by the set and someone said, "Hey, you want to be?" Yeah, sure.
But yeah, no. But back to the Longmire show, I really like his character in that, and his character it's kind of the interesting dynamic of the show because it takes place right on the edge of, you've got the town that they're in, but they're right on the edge of an Indian reservation. Kind of the tension of, if something happens and the perpetrator happens to live on the reservation and they commit a crime off the reservation, then go back to the reservation, then he's got to kind of work in conjunction with the reservation police, and they don't necessarily like him. And so Lou Diamond Phillips' character is kind of this go-between because he is Native American and he runs this bar that, everybody comes to. And so he's kind of the go-between, and a lot of times he's sneaking onto the reservation when Sheriff Longmire is not allowed to. And so it's he's got kind of an interesting dynamic in the show because he's kind of bridging the two different worlds that the show kind of covers. But yeah, cool. I can't think of anything that I've seen him in that I haven't liked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he did a bang up job in this movie.
Yeah. So is there any particular scene in the movie that kind of jumps out at you as, this was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie? I don't know if I want to say that this is quotable. I think we could talk more about the songs than we could quotes from the movie, but we did have a friend of ours respond on Facebook with a picture that said something along the lines of, no matter what you do, you're never going to look as awesome as Bob does in the opening scenes on his motorcycle in La Bamba.
Yeah, he's pretty tough. He's pretty tough looking on that bike.
Mm-hmm. So is there a scene in this movie that is, you see that, you're like, okay, this is, when I think of this movie, I'm going to think of that scene?
Go ahead, Bo.
Well, that's a tough one. There's two that are standing out right now when you ask it. First blush, it's when he comes out on stage and he does La Bamba.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
That's awesome.
Because I think, less than 10 minutes before that, he's had the conversation with Bob about, I'm going to do this song. I'm going to do it in Spanish. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then they had that whole thing about him being bumped up. You're going to go right after this guy. And then he just comes out there and he decides this is what's going to happen. I'm going to do La Bamba.
And there's people getting up and dancing in the aisles and jumping up on stage. That's just wicked awesome.
Which leads me into the other one that is probably the better choice as the scene you should remember from the movie. It's when he's at the country bar that doesn't really want to let him play, but his mom talks the owner into it, and he gets up there, and his mom's freaking out because the first few chords are going, and he's sang a couple lines, and nobody's doing anything, and she's freaking out. And all of a sudden, everybody starts to dance, and she's just pleased as punch.
Yeah. No kidding.
Those two right there are sort of like the...
And that bar scene, I think that bar scene was done better. You had less long, lingering, awkward stares than the Adventures in Babysitting one.
Well, yeah, but that's just, apples and oranges, to use Pat's line.
Right.
What was my line?
Apples and oranges.
Yeah, that's right. The Adventures in Babysitting, the long, awkward stare with me at my television screen. That was kind of the... But you know what? But Bo, yeah, man, you said it. That scene when he gets out there with La Bamba, and I don't know. Like, I know we've grown up in like the mosh pit generation and all that, and so this question is a little bit off. But have you ever been at like a concert or a performance like that where people are just like spontaneously getting up and police are having to hold them back and like dancing in the aisles and everything like that? It was the closest I'd ever come where something like that happened was actually at a Tito Puente concert at Ravinia, and Tammy and I are sitting there, and holy smokes, man, he just lit it up. And who was the vocalist that was singing with him? Was it? I think it was India was singing with Tito Puente, and all of a sudden, man, it just went like the roof blew off the place. We were at Ravinia, and there were people. There was mambo. There was like salsa dancing going on in the aisles. People were dancing. One dude got up there and started like trying to dance with India, and they had to get security out to throw him. That's what happened at Ravinia, and it was just like that was a cool experience when the music just fires people up. You know what I'm saying? And so you're right, man. That La Bamba scene was great. I love the bar. I love how his brother's like, dude, I'll cover the drums in the bar scene. And the brother, he jumps on the drums, and the first couple of hits on the drum set is a little bit off, and he gets the look on his face, and he's kind of the cocky guy that, he gets the look on his face like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? And then for the rest of the tune, Ritchie Valens has just got the thing handled, and he's back there counting to himself. And I thought that was really well done because he's just like, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then he's like, okay, I can do this. But for the whole tune, he's like counting to himself to keep on the beat. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. The only other scene I'd throw in with like the music and all that was when he auditions for that first band. Mm-hmm. And like he goes walking up with his amplifier, and the guy that's the band leader, the saxophone player, the jerk, he's just like, looks like someone threw that out, and he's just like, yeah, well, that's mine now. And then he just does that, and he just tears it up, and the band starts playing, and the guy's like all jealous, like, oh, and I thought that was a pretty cool scene too.
I would agree, and you hit on something great with the drums there. That moment between brothers where he looks back at him and just says, "Follow me."
Yeah.
Have it, you were talking about how you wanted 4 more hours in the movie. That scene shows so much about how close those two guys are.
Yeah.
Because he just says, "Follow me," and he knows he's going to be there. He might take him a second, but he'll get there. And it's funny because my brother and I, not both musicians, so we have no experience like that. But my wife will laugh at us because we have a shorthand of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
We don't speak in full sentences or sometimes even full words.
Yeah.
And it drives her insane. Because we'll say something and the two of us know exactly what's going on and we don't have to say any more and it's done. But it's a lot like that. You just look back, follow me. All right?
Yeah. Yeah, it reminded me actually of the scene in Backdraft when the McCaffrey brothers are at that place, and they've been fighting tooth and nail, just absolutely fighting with each other, and then all of a sudden the one guy insults Brian McCaffrey, so Steven turns around and slugs him, and then like he wasn't even necessarily supporting his brother, and Remember that? And then, but the guy insults his brother and he just turns around and slugs him. And then some guy grabs Steven and Brian doesn't even know what's going on, but he just comes tearing across the room and throws the guy off Steven. And that was like this, he walks in and he's all nervous and Bob was there saying, hey man, you're going to do okay. And he's like, yeah, I just wish I had a drummer. I'll play drums. I'll jump right in. And you can tell it was out of his comfort zone. And then he jumps in and then he's nervous. And there's, Valens is like big shot there to make some money and play out. And then he can see his brother's nervous, and just like you said, he turns back and just says, and I thought that was a real cool thing, showing the brothers, the family, that bond thing.
And then it comes back later when they're on the phone right before the plane crash.
Yeah.
Where he has the whole, you're going to fly out and meet me in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have this whole conversation. I need to have family around me. It just shows that whole brotherly bond again.
Yeah. So yeah, those were cool scenes. John, what about you, man?
Yeah, I think some of my favorite scenes are again with them as brothers as well. And two of them for me are when he takes him down to Tijuana.
Yeah.
That whole segment of him taking him down there. And what's funny is, like,
did you ever take your brother to Tijuana, John?
Did I ever, or would I ever?
No, I said, did you ever?
No. Are you kidding? I wouldn't last 5 minutes.
No, that's true. Brian would probably handle it better than you.
Yeah, he probably would. Just that whole scene, that whole thing of, them walking through the city and they get to the, what do you call it? Like, it's like a prom night. And, he gets there and there's all those girls there. And you can tell Ritchie doesn't want to be there. And he, and that to me is like one of the fun things about his character is that he's just so, when he can be a regular person, he can be a regular guy, and in some ways, I guess he can maybe be a little similar to his brother, but when he hears music, like all of a sudden, the switch goes off.
Yeah.
And he's there and his brother's trying to convince him. He's like, if you don't find a girl you like, get two of them. I'm paying for it. And, but then he hears the Spanish folk version of La Bamba, and he's like, that's La Bamba. And he's like, it's totally switched from, my brother has brought me here for this purpose. And now all of a sudden I've heard music that interests me and I think I can do something with.
Yeah.
And just like the look on his face when he goes over there and he's just standing right next to the stage playing along with them. And you can just feel the wheels turning, like he wants to do something with this song. So before he gets to the point where he says, I'm going to play La Bamba, just him interacting in that part of it and in that moment. And, that part, I thought that part was kind of cool. And then the whole funny part later when he's with the old guy and he's, skinning the rattlesnake and they're having breakfast out there. And I think one of the other scenes I liked was a lot of the different times with his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought his mom was hilarious. She's telling everybody, this is my son, this is my boy, turn the TV up. That's my son playing. And I love the scene the first time he's playing with the band, the Silhouettes. Mm-hmm. And they don't let him get up and sing. And his mom and his sister are sitting in the car and his mom is just fuming.
Yeah.
Just furious. And I forget what it was that she said as he gets in the car and she drives off all angry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just like her whole attitude and how much she's sticking up for him. And yeah, I thought those two scenes were really good. But one of the interesting things I mentioned to Bo before we started recording was originally in one of the early drafts of this movie, the main character of the movie was going to be Bob, and it was going to be told from his point of view.
Huh. Interesting.
So I was trying to think in my own head when I read that, I was like, all right, well, how would that have changed? Would I have enjoyed the movie as much? Because I'm a little bit. I don't want to say. So, Bo, would you say you did not like this movie, or you just didn't like the beginning?
I didn't like the beginning, so I went in with a different feel. And admittedly, I watched it over 2 days because I didn't finish it in one sitting.
Yeah,
mostly because it was going a little slow, and I was like, I got to come back at this.
Yeah.
The back half of it got me, and I have to admit, hearing Pat and listening to you talk about different things, it's better than I thought it was.
Okay.
I still don't think I'm putting it on my list of movies I'm going to go rewatch.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. That is, I've seen it, I enjoyed it. I think I'm okay if I never see it again.
Yeah,
Not that I didn't like it, but I just one of those that I don't know I would ever go back and rewatch again.
I've consumed it. I've enjoyed it. I don't know that it has much that bears rewatching.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm appreciating it more the more I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just too smart of a movie for me, which is entirely possible when you think about it.
Oh man, that's cool.
It's true. I mean, come on. We're sitting here talking about it. All of a sudden, I like it more. That means it was too smart for me the first time around.
Well, no, I think that. I know that's happened to. I know that's happened to me on this podcast with certain movies. I think I think we were talking about Evil Dead 2, and I think Jeff was saying that about Evil Dead 2. I think when we first started talking about it, he's like, and then after in the middle of the discussion, I think it was he that said, you know what? I think I'm going to rewatch that because I think I like more, I think that just happens when sometimes you discuss it and like it better. And heck, I think sometimes a few movies will go the other way. The more you talk about it, the more you think about it, it's just like, that wasn't good.
That's definitely true. The more you hear other people comment about things that were wrong in a movie, things that you might have missed, but you hear later, you're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to unsee that now. The next time I watch the movie, the first thing I'm going to see is that problem somebody told me about that I've missed all these years.
And that's one of the things why I don't think I will ever trade, even if, I know we talked about this like a year ago, maybe longer than that. Some of the film companies talking about instead of going to the movie theater, that you could have a box in your house that you would be able to beam movies directly to your house the day they came out in the theaters. I don't think I would ever do that because of my reason for liking to go to the theater. I enjoy going to the theater because there are some times where I'm watching a movie and I don't want to say most of my enjoyment, but a lot of my enjoyment for the movie comes out of the reactions of the people that are around me in the theater.
Yeah.
And I think that, you may change your opinion after talking about this, while we're sitting here talking about this. I think for me, I might like a movie better if I go see it in the theater and the other people in the theater are laughing and they're cheering and all that stuff. I think those may be the movies that are more memorable for me are ones that I saw in the theater to begin with.
I think comedy movies for sure lend themselves to that group experience. And then some, I don't want to say cult classics because that's the wrong term, but
because I will say, and I will fully recognize that it is not one of the best movies ever, and it's not even necessarily a really great movie. But I will say, being there on opening night to see The Phantom Menace,
oh sure,
much better experience than I think if I had just gone and rented the DVD and watched it.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. I mean, the first time the lightsaber snap hiss hit, that crowd went nuts.
Yeah.
Because did we?
Yeah.
I think we saw that one together, didn't we?
I think so. It went with a whole bunch of people to the midnight showing at the big Lincolnshire theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we hadn't had Star Wars in how many years, and oh man.
But I mean, I think talking about it, I think being around other people, it can definitely change your opinion on the movie.
Oh sure.
Yeah.
I mean, think about I'm trying to picture the movie in my head, but the big. It'll come to me in a minute, but anytime there's a movie that's got a reveal in it and everyone just starts clapping, you're like, all right, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm experiencing this here.
Well, most recently it was Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Because we were sitting in Wonder Woman, and the first time she climbs out of that trench and she's got Wonder Woman gear on, people in the theater were people were like standing up and clapping, and they're just, people were going nuts. And that's one of the reasons I like to go see a movie during its opening week at a movie theater, because
there's an energy that you can't duplicate.
All right. Well, is there anything else we want to say about La Bamba?
Other than the fact that I think you guys brought me around on it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know that I'm going to see it again, but I definitely have a better feeling about the movie than I did 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely I'll watch this thing again. I mean, I think I'll probably want to watch it with someone, say, hey, check this thing out and everything. The other thing I really want to do is, and Bo, did I hear you right that you said when you were kind of at the halfway point, you did some fact checking on it?
I think John mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, see, I would really like to do that. I mean, I always get curious with these things and just see, was the portrayal of Ritchie Valens, was that accurate? Was he, as single focused on his music and so on and so forth as it's depicted in the movie? And I mean, he really sidestepped a lot of the drugs and the heavy drinking and all that. Was that accurate as well?
And the ladies.
And the ladies and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious about that. Was his mother as much of a driving force there, as it was depicted? I mean, and if so, that's very cool, and I'm glad the movie did it justice. The other thing is I would love to just, well, and I guess it's kind of, you see the end result, but I mean, my gosh, that guy could really adapt well to situations, like you said, he got in that situation. Okay, I got a song for this. Okay, well, I can play this tune. Well, I can jump in on this tune. And that's, I mean, you talk to any of those guys that play in any kind of a bar band or a wedding band or any kind of a working musician that plays in a band, and they can, my gosh, they can play stuff they can play any tune in any key, and if they don't know that tune, they have 6 more that can match it. They can jump in, they can play by ear, and it's
quite impressive.
It's unbelievably impressive. It's one of those things that it would be very condescending for me just to say, oh, I wish I could do that, because I mean that just takes hours upon hours upon hours of practice and hard work. But boy, they showed him off as that, and at 17. Holy cow. I mean, at 17, if that was even half of what he could do. I mean, yeah, I thought it was just a very cool testament to his music, and what a loss. I mean, obviously on the human level for his family, but on the wide level, it's just sad that we just need people that bring happiness and joy and music into this world, and it's unfortunate that that he only got as far as he did. But it's cool that we still have some that we got to hear some of his music, before he left this earth.
So I will say there were a couple things that I did not get to mention earlier. I kind of forgot to mention earlier, and then one other thing I wanted to say about the movie. You mentioned about his family. This movie actually has special meaning for his family, which if nothing else, even if it wasn't a successful movie, and it was successful at the time, the family actually was pretty heavily involved in this movie. And his mother, during one of the first scenes where they have a party together as a family, she's one of the older women sitting on a couch, I think, in one of the scenes. And I get his real mother, it was Ritchie Valens' real mother. She was an extra in the family scenes, and I guess she died just a few months after this movie came out.
Huh.
So she was in it. His younger sister, his family would come to the set and they would watch this movie being filmed. And I guess they just got so wrapped up in it, they started calling Lou Diamond Phillips Ritchie. And it came to the scene where he was going to do the coin flip to see who was going to get on the plane. And I guess off to the side while they were filming this, his Ritchie Valens' real sister was off to the side watching this, just sobbing and saying, just don't get on that plane. Don't get on that plane. Like they were reliving all of this. But then when it was all done, the family said, you know what, if nothing else, what we appreciate about this movie is it's given us closure. Like we actually feel like, even though it's fiction, even though it's a movie, we feel like we got to see the final days of Ritchie's life. And, we did, he died in a plane crash and he was 17, 18 years old. I mean, we didn't really get any closure, but this movie feels like it gave us some closure. So I'm thinking, even if this movie was a total flop, at least it did that for the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so I think we've all decided that, this was our first viewing of it, that we enjoyed the movie. We enjoyed it even more, I think, after talking about it. So definitely go check it out. The last thing I want to say about it, and it's just more of a comment, and I don't know if you guys feel free to respond to this or not. One thing I thought was kind of interesting about it was that it's a movie with a predominantly minority cast in the mid 80s, and that it did so well. And I think that was something that was kind of surprising to me, was that you have, and I didn't know that the real Ritchie Valens was Latino. I didn't know that. I didn't know his history at all. And I think, not to say that in the middle of the 80s, you can't have a movie where you've got minority actors as the lead and not have it do well. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that it did very well for the time, and that it really wasn't. I mean, Lou Diamond Phillips is not a big name actor. S.A. Morales was not a big actor. These people were not necessarily big name actors, but the movie still did really well. And so I don't know if that goes to the performances. I don't know if it goes to the writing. Some of the critics talked about how the writing might have been a little weak, but that to me was just kind of interesting, that I thought that it did so well during a time when you really didn't have a whole lot of minority driven movies.
Yeah. And it money wise, it did well. Critics loved it. I mean,
yeah,
certainly a poster child for success.
Yeah. All right. So if you want some good music, you can also go get the soundtrack to this one too.
Fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah. But so if you want some good music, if you want to watch a good music movie, then go check out La Bamba. In the meantime, our next episode is going to be Dirty Dancing, and don't worry, we're not going to switch this over to a video podcast. We're not going to do any dancing at all. I was trying to
think no one wants to see that.
Well, I was going to try to do one of the jumps and have one of you guys catch me.
Good luck.
Head. Okay, I'm going to stop singing there.
Okay. So next week we will be doing Dirty Dancing. We'll talk about the movie. We won't actually be doing any dancing, but
no.
And then further on in the month of July, we're going to be taking a look at our reviews of the worst of 1987 movies, and then our review of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the TV series, which started in 1987. And I'll go ahead and throw them out here so that you guys can start thinking about it. And if anybody listening has some that they'd like to suggest, I sat down the other night and somehow, Bo, we got you in here twice.
Hold on. My fault.
That's all right.
Fixed it.
Okay, there we go. That was weird. Okay, you still there?
I am here. Bo, are you there?
Bo, are you still there? Might have lost Bo.
I was trying to switch to my iPad, and because my phone was dying, and it was harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
So I would edit all that crap out, or not. Okay. But that's up to you.
I got you. So I'm going to throw this out here because for you guys to start thinking about it, if any of our listeners want to throw out some suggestions, I did start sitting down the other day and realized that it's usually around about this time, because it's summertime and I've got a little bit more time on my hands to do stuff like this. I started to plan out the movies for next year. And there's a lot of fun movies for next year. So you guys can start thinking about this now. I mean, there's some good stuff. Good stuff for next year. So in fact, you know what? Allow me to read off a couple of the 1988 movies just so you kind of get a taste of what we got going on here. We've got Die Hard.
Woo!
There we go. Willow.
Dude! Yes!
We have Akira, the animated movie.
Oh, nice.
We have Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic.
We have Big. We have The Great Outdoors, Coming to America.
Oh, man.
Good morning, my neighbors.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it. But...
Family podcast.
Ooh. Yeah. We have Naked Gun, Beetlejuice.
Oh, man.
We've got Scrooged. We've got...
Yes! Best Christmas movie ever.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Ernest Saves Christmas!
Mm-hmm.
Might have to bring my wife in as a special guest host on that one.
There we go. We'll do that right around the same time we do Scrooged.
Perfect. That's a good one.
We've got Rain Man. We've got Heather's Cocktail.
Heather's is another one my wife might want to join on.
Okay. We've got
that might be her favorite movie of all time. I'm not sure.
Okay.
She can do the whole movie. Like, I am not even joking, word for word. Heather's.
She can quote that one like you and I quote Star Wars?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We got Mystic Pizza, 8 Men Out, Stand and Deliver.
Wow.
We have, see, here's where you get into some of my favorites.
We got a good year.
Yeah, we do. And then you get into like the horror movies. We've got They Live.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. We have the first Child's Play movie. We have the 1988 version of The Blob.
Oh.
We have Pumpkinhead. We've got Return of the Living Dead 2. We've got Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We have the movie Michael Jackson's Moonwalker.
Nice.
Used to watch that all the time. We've got, what else? That might be all I have on here for now. I've got a whole bunch of others on here too, but those are kind of the highlights.
That's a solid year coming up. Can we fast forward?
We got some good stuff. Young Guns. We got Young Guns, Red Heat.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen Young Guns in so long. I'm excited.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm throwing that out there for you guys and anybody else who's listening. If they've got some other suggestions, I'm starting to throw together a list of our possible movies for next year. So if anybody's got a 1988 movie that they would like us to cover for next year, let us know, and we will throw it into our list, and then we'll sort them out. We'll see how many Wednesdays we've got per month, and we'll sort out all of our themes and for each month and get that all worked out, and then we'll throw the schedule out there and let people see what's going on.
That list is fantastic.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, it's no 1989, which I know Pat's really excited.
Oh, I am too.
You got a couple more years to go for that one.
But you know why I think, and feel free to tell me I'm full of it, but you know why I think as we get into 88, 89, and 90, things are going to take off for us?
I want to make myself dinner.
Is I think these are movies that now we were older and we saw when they first came out. Like, admittedly, I was 6 years old when La Bamba came out. I did not see it when it first came out, obviously. But none of these movies did I see when they first came out. I saw them on TV or I saw them on a VHS rental. We're starting to talk about movies that we were 8 and 9 and in our, for lack of a better term, formative years. I think we're going to start. There's going to be some coming up that are going to be, this is our childhood now we're starting to talk about.
Yeah.
Some of these movies we've talked about up till now have been our post
movies our parents showed us.
Right. We're starting to get into movies that we wanted to watch.
We would have chosen movies we chose to go see.
Exactly. I think that's gonna be cool.
Yeah. No, and it's funny. The more I look at some of these lists, because I did one of those lists a little while ago on Twitter where somebody was like, "Okay, pick one movie from each year that you like," and I was like, "Well, that's just a cruel, cruel joke."
Yeah, that's evil.
And then because I remember making comments at the time, like in high school, I remember thinking, you know what, man, this was a horrible year for movies. There are no good movies that came out this year. And now looking back on it about 20 years later, I look at a list of movies that came out in like 95, 96, 97. I'm like, oh, there were so many good movies that year. So I think maybe at the time I just didn't appreciate like this was a good movie. And then maybe I saw it later. I was like, well, no, actually 15-year-old me wouldn't have liked this movie, but 30, 35-year-old me likes this movie.
Well, yeah, you got to remember, high school us knew everything, and you couldn't tell us we were wrong.
No. Some of us never let go of that.
That's true. But can you imagine dealing with high school you right now?
No, because I'm currently dealing with 10-year-old me.
Fair enough.
And I'm having a hard enough time with that.
Yeah, not having kids gives me an interesting perspective on that because I deal with high school kids on a regular basis. So you guys deal with middle school kids, so you have the different age group. But for me, it's like, oh my God, I was such a dip. Like,
I brought back a box of videotapes that were in some boxes that had belonged to my mom and dad, and it has old family movies on it.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like 9-10-year-old me he's not as cool as I think he once was.
Yeah. Moody and irritable.
He was cool in 1990, and I don't know, something happened between then and 2017. Not a cool guy anymore. He's really kind of obnoxious, and 2017 me kind of wants to edit him out of every video that he's in.
I see.
Yeah. So, but that'll be fun when I get to digitize those. I can choose whether or not I want to edit every piece of myself out of those videos because it's really obnoxious.
Yeah, that digitizing the old home videos thing. I still have stuff in my office that I keep saying I'm going to get to that someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never done that.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our La Bamba show. So feel free to join us back here next week for Dirty Dancing. In the meantime, if you want to reach us, 30 podcast, and any one of these, when I say 30 podcast, I'm talking 30 podcast at gmail.com, 30podcast.com, at 30 podcast on Twitter, or 30 podcast on Facebook. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are on Stitcher, Satchel, Google Play, iTunes. Listen to us directly from the website. But that's how you can get in touch with us. And if you've got any other comments, or if we are totally wrong about something, or if you've got a suggestion for a movie that you think we should be watching or something we should be covering, let us know. We would love it if you would give us a review on iTunes. If you're listening and enjoying the show, let us know what you like about it, and we will try to do more of that. But otherwise, in the meantime, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Go watch La Bamba. Listen to the soundtrack. Dance around a little bit. But in the meantime, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we will see you back here next week for Dirty Dancing.
Bye.
Peace out.
All right. Let me save that one real quick. All right. I'm going to save this file real quick, and I'm going to take a very fast break, and then I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, man. Now I just want to go watch that Eddie Murphy Buckwheat skit.
Buckwheat.
Okay. Buckwheat sings. Aunts. Ties. Feetines a mate. Wookin' Panub in all the wrong places. Wookin' Panub. Once Buckwheat sings a song, it's eternally his. Deb. Dead on the diabet eye. Eddie Betty eye. Something.
Mumble what now?
Okay, I'm going to take a really fast break, and I'll be right back in a moment.
All right.
Okay.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Discuss.
Wow.
Wow.
You gave us three parameters, neither of which I give a crap about.
No.
Wow. So we're going there. Okay.
Go there. All right, I'll be back.
So what have you been up to with your summer there, Patrick?
Well, I was about to ask you the same. I mean, really, just like I go kind of into beach bum mode where I like to go to the lake. I like to go out on the water. And when I'm not at the lake or on the water, I'm kind of just thinking about the lake and the water. That's
nice.
That's pretty much it. Work around the house. Just getting things put away and cleaned up. We put an addition on the play set in the backyard, so we have monkey rings and a cargo net and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And so that's been exciting. And then I don't know, we put the play set up about 3 or 4 years ago, and then a storm came and blew a tree down and took out the play set 3 years ago. So then we put a second play set up, identical to the first in the same spot. This is sort of like the Monty Python. I built a castle, it fell into the swamp thing. And then we had a whole bunch of pieces left over. So now my dad and I are kind of going through the pieces saying, oh, well, we still have the slide from the original one. We can have 2 slides on this thing. This is how. And so we're finally getting to the bottom of the pieces and all that kind of stuff. And then I put a little extension on my deck and
nice.
just little bits and pieces like that. So what about yourself, man? What have you been up to?
Honestly, a lot of working, a couple of concerts, and that's about it. We actually went up to Gray's Lake for their family fireworks and festival night. Mike and Joe, this band that we really like, were playing.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. There's this huge park between Gray's Lake Central High School and Gray's Lake Middle School.
Okay.
And there was food, there was beer, there was music. It was, they threw a good party, and they let you bring, we didn't know this at the time, so we didn't bring anything, but you can bring a cooler with all your own food and stuff if you want. And it was a really good time.
Cool.
Yeah. I like finding little stuff like that. It's nice,
Yeah, no doubt. What if now you say you're working? Is this like through Vernon Hills? You got a lot of stuff going on, or?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff in the summer. Like today, it was we tore open the ceiling in the classroom, pulled some new wire, added some control features. We've got this room that they built a few years ago with a couple of TVs and a projector, and the matrix switcher we put in was terrible, and it's always been terrible, and I knew it was terrible. We just didn't really have a better option at the time for what we wanted to spend, and so I ended up we put in a different control system today. I've got 2 kids that work for me, and then we got 2 kids that work for the IT, like the computer side of the department, and we all got together today, and the 4 of them pulled some wire and redid some stuff, and we finished a classroom today. We'll finish another one tomorrow, and yeah, we do a lot of that. A lot of pulling wire, a lot of pulling apart ceilings.
Got you. Now, are you technically a 12-month person?
Yeah.
Or are you okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're there all year. We've got summer school this year at Vernon Hills too, so that keeps us slightly occupied. I won't say it keeps us busy because it doesn't really,
but people kind of know where you're at and will come knock on your door and say, "Hey, how does this work and that work?" And
yeah, exactly. Because what we end up having is we get a lot of teachers from Libertyville who come down to teach summer school, and they just don't know how things work at Vernon Hills because, as weird as it sounds, for being in the same district, things at the 2 buildings are not very similar at all.
Really?
Yeah, we've both got a different way of doing things, and because there's only 2 of us, we're kind of allowed to get away with that.
Okay. So what kinds of things, for example? Because, I mean, we'll see some differences between the 2 middle schools, but
Well, like, for example, we buy different projectors. I mean, they have a certain model, we have a certain model, and while that sounds like it shouldn't be that big a deal, if you look at a remote that says one thing when you're expecting it to say something else, it can confuse some people. I'm trying to think what else we do different. Like, they're big smartboard people at Libertyville. We're not. So they probably have smartboards in like 80% of their classrooms. We have 4 of them.
I see.
So it's the teachers that come from up there like, well, where's my smartboard? Well, you don't have them. So you're going to have to figure out a way around that. And it's just little stuff, but if you're a teacher who's walking in to teach, 6 weeks of summer school, you sort of have a plan. It can be a little jarring when we don't have what you're expecting.
Right. Interesting. So what are the options when people want a smartboard and there isn't one?
Well, we have some rooms that have Epson interactive projectors, which are similar to smartboards, but not the same. So that gets us, some things. Sometimes they just have to do without because we only even have a few of those now. The Epsons are sort of starting to take over, so we do have interactive options. They just have to get used to using them a little differently, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So we deal with a lot of that stuff. It's some of it's just so silly. Like, really, you can't teach without your smartboard. Okay, I can't really help you with that, but it's good to know.
Wait, there are people that can teach without a smartboard?
Can't teach without a smartboard.
Right. There are people that can?
Oh, well, yes. I know several.
Oh. That's disconcerting.
That's good.
All right. Well, I'm back. Are you guys ready to put baby in the corner?
Dude,
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Darn tootin'.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious.
And don't call me Shirley.
Don't call me Shirley.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I have you now.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious...
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making.
That's right. This is the 30-something movie podcast. And this time around, we are going to be, you're not going to be able to see any of it, but we're going to be doing a whole lot of dirty dancing.
Speak for yourself. There will be no dancing here.
Okay. I am currently dancing right now.
There's much I could say, but little I will.
Allow me to apologize to your family now.
That's fine. That's why I'm down in the basement.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. This may be the reason that I have a face for podcasting.
Certainly one of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So this time around, we are talking about Dirty Dancing. But before we get into that, I have with me Bo and Pat.
Hey.
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Well,
man. Doing fine.
All right. So it is definitely in the swing of our summer. We are teachers, so not all of us have the summer off, but we have a portion of the summer off and then other things that we have to do here and there. So we are in the middle of our month of what was going to be music and dancing and frivolity and all kinds of things, but it got turned into 2 movies about music and dancing, and then a show on the worst movies of '87, and then a show on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which we probably will need to spend 4 or 5 hours talking about, since it'll be our discussion of the entire series.
Yeah,
I don't know how we narrow that down into like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Very carefully.
We do our best.
Yeah.
Maybe if we have a phased tachyon pulse, we can modify the deflector dish.
Yes.
And narrow our discussion down into 2 hours, or we can create a time loop that causes it to be an infinite discussion that only lasts 2 hours.
Oh, I like that.
I have no idea what I just said.
That's solid logic, though.
But I kind of feel like that's some of the same dialogue that the actors, when they got the scripts for Next Generation, I think I remember like watching a behind the scenes thing, and I think it was
Tech.
Yeah, I think LeVar Burton said, you know what, they would just hand us these scripts and it would have all this stuff in here, and I have no idea what they're talking about, but we just said it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the early drafts, all they would say is tech, and then they would have to wait for the people to insert the words from the Michael Okudas of the world.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Yes, it will.
I don't know that we have any new movie news to talk about this time around. Although I will throw it out one more time. And Bo, you're apparently abandoning me because you've got some dumb excuse like a anniversary. But
yeah.
There is the evening with Bruce Campbell coming up. Pat, do you want to go?
Yeah, I got to see. I saw the things going back and forth. What is this entail, and when is it?
It's going to be Friday night, September 1st.
Okay.
it's Bruce Campbell on stage, and he's kind of talking about his career and movies and TV shows, and then they're gonna have like a live trivia thing going on, and then you get an autographed copy of his autobiography.
Okay.
So I think it's gonna be similar to like the Mel Brooks thing, but just not quite as famous as Mel Brooks.
Gotcha. I hate to do this to you, John. I don't want to incur any wrath, but I might have to be like a definite maybe on that one.
Okay. Otherwise, I got to go by myself, and then that's just sad. And then I have to tell everybody that Pat was the one that made me go by myself.
See, John, I hate to say it, but I have an Irish mother, so guilt trips
doesn't work.
Won't work on me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll think of something else.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I had my brother originally was interested in going, and then he found out when it was, and he's like, no, I can't make it up for that. And so I'm I'm looking at this. I'm like, Bo apparently thinks that his anniversary is more important than this.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I shall look into the date, and I will get back to you.
Okay. All right. If you don't, that's fine. I'll just go by myself. And then if they actually videotape it, I'll usually see this one, like big fat guy sitting there crying.
Well, we're talking about live events related to the podcast.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this to Pat already, but August 17th, that Star Trek The Next Generation podcast I've discussed, The Greatest Generation, has a live taping at Lincoln Hall in Chicago, where they will be discussing the movie First Contact.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And when is that? August 17th?
August 17th. So school's sort of started for us.
Okay.
I already have a pair of tickets. Originally, it's funny. What made me think of it was originally my brother and I were going to go, but he is not as interested as I thought he was going to be.
Okay.
So I do have one extra ticket, and then tickets are still available.
All right. Yeah. Let me think about that. Actually, I had to look at the date and find out when, because that's before we start back at school every year. I always take like a day with John, and we'll go out somewhere and we'll do something he wants to do, and then I'll take a day with Nora, and then we'll go out and do something she wants to do that day. And so we discovered, I think it was an email that I got somewhere, that during the month of August, the either Regal or Marcus cinemas are reshowing all 4 or 3.5, however you want to say it, Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, right on.
Throughout the month of August. So he has seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's also seen Last Crusade. I didn't quite think he was ready to see Temple of Doom yet.
I can understand that. I'm not ready to see that even now sometimes.
Right. So but I think it's Monday the 14th. They are that week, the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. I think that's their reshowing. That's when they're going to do Temple of Doom on the big screen. So I think we might end up going to see it on one of those days. So if this other thing is the 17th, then I might possibly be able to do that. I'll have to let you know. But yeah, so that might be our Indiana Jones week. All right. Well, if anybody else is interested in going to the Evening with Bruce Campbell thing, I've seen a few things on like other things he's done kind of in this vein. I guess he's done some stuff when they had the Evil Dead musical that was going. He would show up sometimes and do kind of like a miniature version of his Evening with Bruce Campbell, or he would do these at comic book conventions. And, and I've read a couple of his biographies, so he's a funny guy anyway, even when he's not in his movies. And I've made an attempt to go back and find as many of his movies I haven't seen as I could.
Okay.
And I've procured myself a copy of the entire run of Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Those have not had a chance to start watching them yet, but that's in my queue. I watched, for the first time, I went back and watched Bubba Hotep. And that was a fun one. Have you guys ever seen that one?
I have not.
No.
It's I'll give you the premise of the movie, and then you can decide, and just keep in mind it's Bruce Campbell, but I'll give you the premise of the movie, and then you decide if you want to see it. And if you want to see it, I've got a copy of it on DVD. It is Bruce Campbell plays an aged Elvis Presley who is alive and well in a Southern retirement home. And his neighbor down the hall is an African-American John F. Kennedy, who also lives in the retirement home.
Oh my God.
And they have to fight this evil undead mummy that for some reason is showing up and stealing the souls of the elderly people that live in the retirement home.
Oh.
It's kind of fun.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, do you think Bruce Campbell liked horror movies always, or do you think it was the Evil Dead series that got him going?
I get the feeling he just enjoys being a B-movie actor.
Okay.
I almost get the feeling from reading some of his biographies. I kind of get the feeling that he, and I think he's said this, although in his biographies you can never quite tell when he's being serious. I get the sense that while he would still jump at the chance to be in a big Hollywood movie that would make him lots of money and things like that, I kind of feel like he enjoys the maybe lower pressure of being a B-movie actor. And that I think for him it seems like he enjoys rather being the king of the B movies as opposed to being a smaller bit actor in A-list Hollywood movies.
Okay.
So, and I don't know. I mean, most of what I've seen him in has been the horror, but again, we've got the Briscoe County Jr. that I still haven't watched yet, and then I also got a copy of. Was it just one season? I think it was just one season. A show called Jack of All Trades. And it was him. He's kind of an American spy. And he's got a woman who's a British spy who's kind of like his sidekick. And they meet all kinds of historical figures. I think it's supposed to take place during the late 1700s, early 1800s. And it's still got his kind of humor in it. And then I just bits and pieces, because I never really watched Hercules and Xena, but I know he was a recurring part on those shows. So I'm trying to go back and find some of his movies that I haven't seen, and I'm trying to kind of track those down and watch those before I go to this thing in September. But if there's anybody out there who's a big Bruce Campbell fan and you happen to live anywhere near Chicago, this thing on September 1st, the last time I looked, there are 65 tickets left, maybe. So if you're interested in going, 65 tickets. Doesn't look like it's too bad. Get a free book out of it, and I'm all for free books. So. Unless you want the ticket to be free and the book costs you $30. So however you want to look at that. But I know, yeah. So I've always liked Bruce Campbell stuff, and to me he's like a modern fourth Three Stooge. So I've always liked his stuff, and I'm a big fan. So that'll be fun. I'm gonna go to that, and that'll be fun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Briscoe County Jr. stuff, because after you guys have talked about it, I mean, I remember seeing previews for it back in the day, and maybe like flipping through the channels, I would see a few minutes of it, but I never actually sat down and watched full episodes.
And John, back up. You said it's in your queue. Where did you find it?
No, I got a copy of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
In my actual physical queue to be able to watch.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I got electronic copies of it. So I've got that ready to go. That'll be when I go to the gym. That's my thing. I'll watch those. And I did finish watching the first season of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
What'd you think?
If the most I can give it is like 4 or 5 stars, I would go steal stars from something else. And tack those to the end of it.
Isn't it just fun? It's just fun.
It's everything that I love about the other Evil Dead movies. And just more. Like all the stuff that I like that it's a half hour each. I think
exactly
that's perfect amount. Because there are times where the whole B movie Bruce Campbell thing, if it tries to go on for too long, like if I sat down and one right after the other tried to watch Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, I think it might be a little too much.
Sure.
But in half-hour pieces, and the other supporting characters in that show are hilarious too.
Aren't they just good?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan. Now I have to go track down season 2. Are they still in season 2?
No, just finished.
Oh, just finished. Okay. All right. Yeah, I was able to get the first season from the library, so I'm going to have to...
It's awesome. There is no doubting that.
And just it's like it's not. And Pat, just in case you go to watch it, I'm not going to give anything away.
Okay.
It's just, to me, it's just hilarious because you normally think of you've got this hero and he's going to do whatever he possibly can to make sure that good prevails, and that's just not him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like even if it means that good doesn't win, sometimes he's just going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to take the easy way.
Funny.
So, no, I love that show. It was great. So I'm going to find season 2. All right. Well, shall we jump on into Dirty Dancing?
Woohoo!
Yes.
All right. Let's do it.
Would that technically be lift on in then?
If we can get the lift right this time. Now, the last few times we practiced it, I didn't want to say anything, but I would prefer it next time, Bo, when you and I practice this, if we could do it in a lake.
Yeah, see, I'm not big on the wet T-shirt contest, so I don't know about that.
Okay. All right. I mean, it was a little tough not having a lake around.
I can understand, but I mean, Jennifer Grey in a wet T-shirt, you and I in a wet T-shirt, there's a little bit of a difference there.
It's not quite the same.
No, not even a little bit.
A little off, a little different.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this time around, we are talking Dirty Dancing. If you have not seen it, you apparently are not female and you haven't been around for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So go see it and then come on back. But Dirty Dancing came out August 21st, 1987, rated PG-13, was an hour and 40 minutes. Director for this one was Emil Ardolino. He died in 1993. He also directed Sister Act and 3 Men and a Little Lady. Producer on this one was Linda Gottlieb. She also was the executive producer of One Life to Live and several TV movies and ABC after-school specials. The writer for this one was Eleanor Bergstein. She also wrote It's My Turn and Let It Be Me. Music was done by John Morris, who also did music for The Producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Clue, and Spaceballs. The budget for this one...
while I whip this out. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I had to change the password or combination of something because John Ezra figured it out not that long ago. And while I'm sitting there, he's like trying to watch me. I said, "Don't watch me. I'm changing the password here." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to be able to figure out what it is." I said, "You know what? I'm going to change it to something so easy you wouldn't even think of it. I'm going to change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5."
That's the combination an idiot would have in his luggage.
That's amazing. That's the same combination I have on my luggage. All right. So this one was a budget was $6 million, and it made a few little dollars here and there. It made $214 million.
Yeah, just a few bucks.
Just a little bit. And this kind of, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that kind of goes to show you the movie executive people, when they first saw some of the early drafts of this movie, they originally wanted to have it be a straight-to-video movie because they thought it was going to be a total flop.
Guess they got that one wrong.
All this dancing, who's going to want to watch that?
Right. All right. So Jennifer Grey plays Baby Houseman, Frances Baby Houseman. She was in Red Dawn, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Patrick Swayze, who died in 2009, played Johnny Castle. He was in The Outsiders, Roadhouse, Red Dawn, Ghost, Point Break, and Donnie Darko.
That's Richard Castle's older uncle.
That's true. And Frank Castle, the Punisher. Mm-hmm. Jerry Orbach, who died in 2004, played Dr. Jake Houseman. He was in Law and Order, Beauty and the Beast, and Universal Soldier. Cynthia Rhodes played Penny Johnson. She was in Staying Alive and Flashdance. Jack Weston, who died in 1996, played Max Kellerman. He was in Ishtar, which I'm still having trouble finding to be able to watch. Short Circuit 2 and the 1968 version of The Thomas Crown Affair. Jane Brucker played Lisa Houseman. She was in Stealing Home, Bloodhounds of Broadway. Kelly Bishop played Marjorie Houseman. She was in Solar Babies, Gilmore Girls, and Private Parts. Lonnie Price played Neil Kellerman. He was in Hot to Trot, Muppets Take Manhattan, and the director of several stage shows. Max Cantor, who died in 1991, played Robbie Gold. Ironically, he was reincarnated as a Bears kicker.
I was going to say for him.
There you go. He was in something called Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. Charles Honey Coles, who died in 1992, played Tito Suarez. He was in Rocky II and The Cotton Club. And Wayne Knight played Stan, who was in Jurassic Park and Seinfeld. Critics gave this one a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience gave it a 90%. Pauline Kael of The New Yorker said, "The dancing here brings out the sensual dreaminess of the songs. Dirty Dancing, what a great title. Is such a bubble-headed retro vision of growing up in the 60s or any other time that you go out of the theater giggling happily." And Jay Boyar of the Orlando Sentinel said, "Although the plot is sometimes implausible, the movie's music, dancing, and romantic spirit carry a lot of it. In addition, Dirty Dancing has the virtues of a female main character, a bit unusual in a coming-of-age movie, and an interesting setting." Cinema Score gave it an A-. Awards for this one, it won an Oscar and a Golden Globe for Best Music, Original Song, I've Had the Time of My Life. Baby is one listless summer away from the Peace Corps. Hoping to enjoy her youth while it lasts, she's disappointed when her summer plans deposit her at a sleepy resort in the Catskills with her parents. Her luck turns around, however, when the resort's dance instructor, Johnny, enlists Baby as his new partner, and the two fall in love. Baby's father forbids her from seeing Johnny, but she's determined to help him perform the last big dance of the summer. This is where the trailer goes. All right, so I guess there was a little bit of persuading that had to go on for people to be in this movie because, and we watched this one just a couple years ago, Red Dawn had both Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey in it, and apparently because of their time together on that movie, they did not like each other so much.
Huh.
So there had to be, I don't know, I've heard different things that either she thought he was kind of a jerk and he thought she was kind of a prima donna, and you know, they didn't like each other so much. When they were approached to star across from each other in this movie as love interests, then that originally did not go over so well. Let's see, there's a couple of others. A lot of the stuff that, like, some of the more memorable moments in this movie were things that, like, the director, I guess, would just leave the camera rolling, or he would start filming several minutes before they were really getting ready for the scene, and they were just kind of like getting in character and acting weird. So some of the scenes where, like, they're practicing their dancing and they're crawling towards each other on the floor, that was just them kind of warming up to get ready for the scene, and the director had been rolling the camera and he's like, "Nope, I like it, we're just gonna keep it in." And apparently cool. That several of the moments that we think of as like, oh, that's a Dirty Dancing scene, that's a moment from that movie, when we think of those, it's a lot of those times where it's just they let the camera roll, they caught that stuff, and that's what they decided was going to make it into the movie. One of the other ones in the scene where they're practicing the dancing, and he repeatedly has that move where he kind of runs his hand down her arm and it kind of tickles her. That's actually her laughing. They had to do several takes of it because she kept laughing every time he'd do it. And his frustrated look is actually Patrick Swayze's frustrated look for, I don't want to have to do this scene again.
Funny.
Let's see, a couple of the other things. The actor Billy Zane was actually the first choice for Johnny, but he didn't have kind of the chemistry in the dance scenes with Jennifer Grey. And they actually kind of, because they wanted them to fight a little bit, that's one of the reasons they thought that Patrick Swayze would be a good fit for Jennifer Grey in this movie, because they didn't like each other at first. And so they were going to have Billy Zane do it, but then they switched him out for Patrick Swayze because they thought that he was a better dance partner for her. Let's see, the test screenings, when they did the test screenings. So this, I kind of mentioned this earlier, they did the test screenings, and originally the distributor for this movie said, you know what, this is horrible. We're not putting this out in theaters. We're not going to pay to do that. Let's just either put this out direct to video. One of the producers thought this was so horrible. He reportedly told somebody, you know what, just burn the negative and collect the insurance. This is going to be a horrible movie. So shows what they know. Clearasil at the time wanted to be a promotional partner of the movie because they thought maybe it would be a good way to reach teenagers who would be their primary target. But they wanted the abortion subplot to be cut out from the movie if they were going to be a promotional partner. And so the director and everybody else kind of said, no, that's kind of a big subplot of the movie, so we're not going to cut that out. So Clearasil decided not to throw their money in that direction.
All right.
Okay, I think that's all I've got on the background of it. So here's kind of an interesting thing that I read, and I was looking up some stuff on this movie, is that a lot of people see this as a movie where it's like an ugly duckling gets the guy. So you have this girl that starts out and, you know, she transforms into this great dancer and everything. But in one thing I was reading, the writer of this movie, Eleanor Bergstein, said that she hates it when people refer to the movie in that way because she sees it as Baby is actually the strongest character in the movie and everybody else changes around her.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'd ever thought of it that way. Watching it this time around, and I'll admit, I've only seen this movie maybe a couple of times, maybe three times at most. But in watching it this time, I don't know if it's because I've seen a whole bunch of movies lately where it's a strong female character, like we just watched Wonder Woman, and you know, just watched the Alien Covenant had a strong female character in it, and you know, so I've seen a lot of those lately. So maybe that was just more on my mind as I watched it this time. But I don't know. I mean, is this for either of you guys? Is this the first time you saw this movie?
Definitely not. My wife loves this movie. I've seen it more times than I can count.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, John, I'm more with you. Like, I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times. It's definitely not more than I can count. But yeah, and the reason I saw it was because my wife's a fan, and we watched it early on.
Yeah. And that was kind of something that came up too, is that in a couple of different websites, as I was looking some stuff up on this, and my wife said the same thing. She's like, "Oh yeah, I remember watching this as a kid, and then you know my cousin and I, we would dance around to this movie, and we were talking about it too. We're like, you know, this probably is a movie that kids shouldn't see, but for some reason, a whole bunch of, and I found similar stories in websites where I looked up information on this movie. It was most of the people writing the stuff were female bloggers or reporters. And they were saying they had almost the exact same story that my wife did. It was, I watched this as a kid. I didn't get all of the subplot stuff that was going on. I didn't get what was going on necessarily between Johnny and Baby. I just liked the music and I liked the dancing. And I'd watch this movie and I would imitate the dancing. And as a kid, that's what I did. And so that to me is kind of like, I keep hearing that as like the main draw to this movie, is it's just a movie all about dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So
that certainly seems to be the overarching theme that people take away. Whether that was how it was intended, I'm not so sure.
So here's my question for us then. We have all seen this movie because our wives like this movie. Do we like this movie?
Yeah, man, Patrick Swayze, man, that guy's a stallion. I tell you, you know what? He's fun to watch. He can dance. He can fight. I mean, yeah, it's fun watching this movie.
Bo, you've seen it more than the rest of us. Is this, even though I know you said you've seen it several times, but primarily because your wife is a big fan, do you also like the movie as much as she does?
I do. I think it holds up because all the themes are timeless. I think the music is solid. I think the girl or boy from the wrong side of the tracks is a timeless theme. I think it's just a feel-good movie. There's nothing. By the time the movie's over, you know, the father realizes that he's not the worst, that Johnny's not the worst thing in the world. You get nobody puts Baby in the corner. You get that scene. You get the whole gamut of feel good by the time it's over. There's no reason not to like it at that point. And the soundtrack's really good.
Yep.
Like,
it's not just the 1 or 2 songs. Like, that is a solid soundtrack from the jump.
Well, apparently that kind of that took them by surprise too. That when the movie came out, they were surprised at how much of a hit it was. And then they put out the soundtrack, and I guess the soundtrack sold some ridiculous number of copies. And so then they put out a second soundtrack with more music from the movie. I guess they had just picked a few of them and put them on the original soundtrack. And then when people went nuts for it, then they said, "Oh, okay, well then we're going to put another one and call it More Dirty Dancing, and we're going to put more music from the movie." And And I guess some of the things that I read was it really, maybe this movie in particular, kind of sparked a resurgence in people's interest in oldies.
Yeah, I could see that.
And to me, that was something I never picked up before. Like I know I've seen this movie a few times, but I never, until I was reading something on it, maybe about a year ago, or it might have come up as a question in trivia when we went to trivia one night. I never realized this movie took place in the 60s.
Okay.
That was something like from the beginning of the movie I missed. I the times that I'd seen this before, and it's been years since I've seen this. I think I just missed the parts where they're talking about how John F. Kennedy hasn't been killed yet, and that it's the 19th.
It's a quick throwaway line at the beginning, and it's funny. We were talking when it came on. I actually ended up watching a version that was playing on Comcast this week.
Okay.
And so I saw what was technically called the special edition.
Okay.
I guess there's some longer scenes and other things. But the whole thing about the time period, it happens in the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many times I've even seen that part of this movie. I've seen this movie countless times, but never, I shouldn't say never, but not in a long time have I seen it from the beginning.
Well, and I wonder if that, you said that, this still holds up. It's a lot of these things are timeless about it. And I wonder if that line wasn't there in the beginning of the movie, you wouldn't even, I don't know if you'd even be able to tell, other than maybe the cars and maybe some of the ways that people are dressing. But I don't even think you'd be able to tell what year this is supposed to be in, because you're off on this resort somewhere, and
well, it's funny you bring that up.
You're kind of secluded at this resort anyway, and
it's funny you bring that up, because one of the things I discussed this time watching it was, do resorts like that still exist? And they talk about, it's in the Catskills, it's in upstate New York or whatever, and
which is another thing I didn't pick up on this movie, and I thought was kind of interesting, was apparently, and if all the stuff that I read is accurate, resorts like this were started because of persecution that Jewish people were experiencing trying to stay at regular hotels. So they created these resorts that were, primarily or exclusively Jewish resorts that they could go to. And I never, again, watching this years ago, I never picked up on the fact that pretty much everybody at this resort is Jewish.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, isn't it?
It's kind of some of it's almost a Jewish versus Gentile thing with the the people staying at the resort versus the people working there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really picked up on that before I started doing a little bit of reading on it and figured that out. So I mean, there's definitely different levels to this movie that I had not experienced before.
Well, and it's definitely one of those movies that makes you wonder, okay, so you can read about it now and you hear about these levels that you didn't know about. Were they intentional, or was it just part of the storytelling back then?
Right.
And I don't know the answer to that. But it certainly makes you think for a minute. Because is that something that, when they wrote it, were they intending to do that? And I think that can be said about a lot of the movies we review. Is what we're taking from it something that was intended, or just something that you take from it 30 years later?
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have, with this movie in particular, do we have any favorite scenes in particular that kind of,
Wow.
Oh, you said you've seen this a whole bunch of times. Pat, you said you've seen it about as many times as I have. Are there any scenes in particular?
You hit on a couple of
numbers. Yeah, the big final numbers, the big wrap it up thing. I mean, punching the hole through the window to get to his car keys. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think you hit on it when you talked about those improv scenes that we all talk about that are so classic to this movie, but you find out later weren't part of the script. I think those are all classic scenes that you remember, like the crawling on the floor. I mean, without that scene, I think without that scene, this movie does go straight to DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm sorry, VHS back then, but you get the idea. Because that scene is awesome. I read in the original theatrical release, the love scene is different. The first time they get together, quote unquote, is very different in the theatrical release than the special edition that I watched.
Okay.
So those two scenes are definitely stand out in my head for sure. And then obviously no one puts baby in the corner and everything from there to the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably the scene with baby and her dad. After
which one? Where she's asking for the money, or after?
No. Later than that, where you how does she word it?
I lied to you. I'm sorry, but you lied to me.
Yeah. And then after that, you disappointed me. She says it even better later, but yes, that whole scene there. I mean, that's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I think it a lot of people can feel that way about their parents or about, their situation at one point or another.
I do like the scene when they go to the what was the name of the other resort?
Oh yeah, the hotel where they go dance.
Yeah, it's like something Drake Hotel, not Drake Hotel, but like
Pembroke, something.
Shandrake Hotel, something like that.
Yeah.
When they go there, and she's got to try to do the dance routine, and she keeps messing up, but just like the way she messes up, and then she kind of like is a little goofy getting back into like, okay, I messed up, but I got to get back to my next step, and I thought that part was kind of fun, where she's trying her best to, and she misses the jump and misses all kinds of other stuff, but you can kind of tell that he's impressed with her, that she's actually come that far. I don't think he expected that she'd be able to pull off any of this, but
right. There's just so much great stuff in this movie. You mentioned that scene, which made me think about the fact that the whole thing, that the old couple is the wallet thief,
mm-hmm.
It's sort of thrown away at the end because of all the other stuff that's happening. But just the fact that they weave that through, that you see the old couple at the hotel, and then they turn out to be the wallet thieves, and there's just a lot of depth to the movie that sometimes even I forget about as many times as I've seen it. I'm not.
Because I was just thinking, like, what purpose did that have it be that they were the wallet thief? And it was like, okay, well, they needed to somehow, she needed to vote for him and all that. But it was like, you're right. They didn't need to go to all that length of having the other wallet thieves, and then he's accused of a crime and all this kind of thing. They didn't need to go to that level of depth to have her vouch for him and let her dad know that she'd been sleeping with him. But
right.
Yeah.
Which, oddly enough, the old woman who was the wallet thief was originally supposed to be played by Dr. Ruth.
Nice.
And she turned it down because she didn't want to be portrayed as a thief.
Oh, that's funny.
So, but apparently she was the one. She was the person that they wanted to be to have a cameo in the movie as the wallet thief.
That's funny because that's better if that's Dr. Ruth, I think. I like that.
So we mentioned that there are just so many songs in this movie and so many great songs. The soundtrack. Do you have a favorite song from the soundtrack?
Ooh, wow.
I know that's kind of a horrible question to just spring on you like this, but
I'm going to say, before we get into the favorite songs, one thing that strikes me as odd is, what year did the tune "I've Had the Time of My Life" actually come out?
87.
And then
it was written for the movie.
Yeah, and then what about "Hungry Eyes"?
I think that one was mid 80s or early 80s.
So the two big tunes for I just find that interesting, and I mean, I guess if I was, when you're in the 80s, okay, you got to throw something in to kind of cater to the modern audience. But that was interesting, and that kind of always struck me as a little odd, probably because I saw it when I was older. Mm-hmm. But it struck me as a little odd. It's like, okay, it's set back in the 60s. You got all this like ballroom dance. You got the mambo stuff. You got this. You got all the 60s rock music that they're doing the bump and grind dirty dancing to when it's just the workers. But then the big final song and then the love song, it's like kind of, what would it be? An anachronism? It's just a little bit too modern. And it's like that. I don't want to say it took me out of the movie, but that was always kind of eyebrow raising when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great tunes. I'm not dissing the tunes. Great tunes. But just that was always a little bit odd.
Yeah. I looked it up. Hungry Eyes came out in 87. So same year the movie came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you two of your biggest musical pieces in the movie are from the 80s, whereas everything else is older, 50s, 60s.
Wow, even She's Like the Wind. I mean, that's, which is there's so much, again, it's back to the depth, but there's so much coolness there. I mean, She's Like the Wind, Patrick Swayze performed that for the soundtrack. I mean, it's just so much going on in this movie.
I'm going to drop in. I found a website that lists every song that's in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I post this episode on our blog, I will include that. I'll probably tweet it out too. But just if people are interested, because there is so much great music in this movie, if you're interested in wanting to track down all the different songs. And the nice thing about this website is and I don't know which version of the movie they're going off of here, but they show you what minute this song is featured in, and they kind of give you a quick little description of, this is the song from the opening titles, or,
oh wow,
Baby Goes to the Dance Class taught by Penny for the first time, and it's the merengue, and they have Love Man by Otis Redding is 17 minutes in, the second song played at the party, when Johnny gives her a brief dancing lesson. So they have a whole description. They've got links to where you can go get these on iTunes or Amazon if you want to, or just listen to them right there. But I thought this was kind of a cool list, just to be able to see.
Nice. That is cool.
All the different songs that are on here. So I will tweet that out, and I will include that on our blog when we post this up.
Cool.
Well, did either of you guys see the remake that they did? What was it, like last year? Or a couple years
God.
ago? I heard it was bad.
So bad.
Now
was that the TV one, or was that the Havana Nights?
No, the Havana.
No, the TV
Havana
one.
Nights was 2004, because I was actually working in a movie theater in college when the Havana Nights one came out, and I mean, I didn't see it. I saw bits and pieces of it, having worked in the projection booth, but the Havana Nights one, I guess, was supposed to be kind of a prequel. It was supposed to take place in maybe like the 50s.
Okay, yeah.
Or even earlier in the 60s, because I think it was pretty early on. But yeah, that one was 2004. Apparently, there was it an ABC TV movie version of it that came out maybe like last year or 2015. I never watched it, and I think
bad.
Even though Sharon likes this movie, I don't think she had any interest in watching the TV movie version of it. But did you end up seeing it?
Parts.
Okay. And it's
bad.
It's as bad as everybody says.
That is the general consensus, at least in this household. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tammy either avoided it like the plague, or same thing. That not a fan.
No. Yeah, it was definitely avoided. It was watched, but not enjoyed.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's anybody out there who watched it and did enjoy it, you can let us know what you liked about it, because the consensus here is we either avoided it and didn't watch it, or watched parts and didn't like it. So, all right. Well, do we have anything else we want to say about Dirty Dancing?
No, I haven't seen it. You should. It's great. There's a lot of depth to the characters, the themes especially. There's a lot happening in this movie.
There's a lot, and a lot more going on than I would have expected from a movie about dancing in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It definitely takes that to a whole other level. There's just a lot going on in that hour 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I'm stating something that's like a well duh, but it's definitely not fluff. I mean, it's a well acted. It's a very good movie.
I mean, it's probably one of my favorite Patrick Swayze roles.
Oh, sure.
Of all of his other, well, I guess that would be a good question too. Is there another Patrick Swayze movie a performance of his that you've enjoyed?
That I've enjoyed, or that like is as good as this one?
I was going to say, because I enjoy him in Point Break, but you know, that's a whole nother. I mean, that's apples and oranges.
Yeah,
again, it's in Point Break he was awesome, but that was a whole other deal.
Yeah.
Roadhouse, he's pretty awesome in Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did either of you guys ever watch the show just right before he died called The Beast, where he's a cop in Chicago?
No.
No, me neither.
Okay. That was pretty good. We watched that. He was like a veteran cop that I think was kind of maybe a little corrupt, and it reminded me a little bit of like Training Day, the movie.
Okay.
Oh, okay, sure.
But he wasn't. I don't think he was, as quite as corrupt as in Training Day. But and then being able to see the different locations because they were filming in Chicago, see the different locations in the show. But I want to say that was right before. I don't know if he did anything else after that. That was right before he passed away.
Well, and you can't forget his performance in Ghost. I mean, that is
right. I think that's my other one. That
it's certainly the one you think about and the one you remember. When you look up his filmography, there's a lot of performances on there that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
But if you say Patrick Swayze, I mean, you think Dirty Dancing, you think Ghost.
I had totally forgotten that he was in Tu Wong Fu.
Exactly. I think Point Break. I do remember him in Point Break. That's definitely one that will always stick with me.
His part, and his part in Donnie Darko was always funny.
Yes, that's the other thing. Like, he has done some really funny little things over the years, or just little parts that, if you think about it, you're like, oh yeah. But when you say Patrick Swayze, it's not the first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the North and South TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Into those as well. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, so I think our consensus is if you've not seen Dirty Dancing, go see it.
Yeah. We kind of fell into the trap of really good movies. There's just not much to say other than the favorite scenes and really good soundtrack, and just go see it. Because I mean, this just really was just an excellent movie.
Yeah. And it's got one of my favorite lines that I reuse whenever I have the opportunity is the "Nobody puts baby in a corner."
Oh yeah,
sure.
Because the type of person I am is I like to do things that make myself chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't need to make anybody else chuckle, but as long as it makes me chuckle, then I'm okay with that. And there have been several times where, like, I will go into Nora's room and she's got some of her dolls stuffed in a corner somewhere.
Yeah.
And I will pick it up and I will hold up the doll and I will say, Nora, nobody puts baby in a corner. Like, okay, I'll put it somewhere else. I'm like, Nora, hold on. Nobody puts baby in a corner. Okay, I'll put it somewhere else then.
Someday.
Yeah. I need to find somebody that understands the reference, but I chuckled and I amused myself, and that's really all that matters.
All right, but you just brought up an interesting avenue, something we talk about once in a while on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the themes of this movie.
When she's 35.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going with that. I wasn't expecting 35, but
Yeah, I don't know, because that was something that my wife brought up too, that she watched this at a really young age.
I think we all did.
And watching it again kind of feels like she probably was too young, but at the same time she didn't pick up on a lot of that other stuff that was going on. They didn't even know what it was. So
right.
You don't even know what you don't know, so you're just focusing on the dancing part, and that's what's cool. And then she mentioned how when she would watch it, her younger cousin would watch it too. So, I mean, she was pretty young to begin with, and this younger cousin was also watching it, and they just watched it and liked it for the music and the dancing and didn't get everything else that was going on, when they watched it at that young age. So I definitely wouldn't show it to Nora anytime soon, but, I probably Probably by the time she's in middle school, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah. No, I mean, the other stuff, I just think, yeah, I think maybe that'd be more me as an adult being worried about. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example of, we were watching Little House on the Prairie tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We were going through and watching they've read all the books, and we're going through and watching all the seasons. And we got to an awkward episode. There was an episode, I think we're in season 7 right now. And there was an episode where a girl in the town who is kind of like the girlfriend of Albert, the boy that the Ingalls family has adopted, and she gets assaulted in the woods, and she's pregnant. And so then, the kids are there watching, and Nora turns and asks the question. She said, well, how is she pregnant? She's not married. Okay.
Well, some people put the cart before the horse.
We're going to have that conversation a little bit later. Just let it be known that is possible, that could happen, and we'll talk about that later. So, and that kind of surprised us, because we're like, oh, we didn't realize that it was that episode.
Sure. Well, and why would you? I mean, it's
right.
So,
I mean, and stuff like that, you watch that as a kid, and you just don't pick up on it as a kid. It's not even in your vocabulary yet, so you don't even
exactly.
On. So, but at the same time, as an adult and as a parent, I would have a hard time showing Dirty Dancing to Nora at age 6.5.
Oh yeah,
of course.
I mean, that's yeah.
I'm definitely gonna take her to Spider-Man, but we're not gonna. Not going to Dirty Dancing just yet.
Let's be honest. The themes in Spider-Man are much simpler.
That's true too. With great power
comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, do we have anything else other than go see it? Do we have anything else we want to say about Dirty Dancing?
Not really. Really good movie.
Okay.
Patrick Swayze's awesome.
Good movie. Go see it.
Yeah, he is.
Patrick Swayze is awesome. Don't put baby in a corner.
Don't put baby in a corner.
And
you know what? And you know what? I mean, this is why I think this movie isn't just like a chick flick.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very popular with women, obviously. But I mean, you have Patrick Swayze he's a character that guys can get behind, and it's not just like, oh yeah, he's a completely unbelievable. He's a human being character. The daddy-daughter relationship, I think is one that, like you said, that conversation was a pretty powerful one and pretty poignant when she sits down to talk with him. Okay, he's kind of a three-dimensional character that, you can get behind. All the different subplots, whether they were there by design or not, that will keep somebody's interest. I mean, it's a really, really well-done movie.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right. So if you have not seen this yet, don't know what you've been doing with your life, but go see it. And as Pat just said, we can attest that even though a lot of times I think this gets pegged as a quote, we are three guys, and the three of us have enjoyed this movie and will continue to enjoy this movie. So go check it out.
Yeah.
I don't think I would label it a chick flick. I know a lot of people do, but
no.
I think that's not a good label for it. So
no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, in the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, we are at 30podcast, that's 30podcast at gmail.com. Our website is 30podcast.com. We are at 30podcast on Twitter, on Facebook. We're also 30podcast. We are on Stitcher, Satchel, Google Play, iTunes, 30podcast.com. You can listen to us there too. And we also have what everybody has deemed affectionately the love line that you can call in is 872-35-MOVIE. 872-356-6843 if you want to call in and leave us a message. Some of us have done that from time to time when we couldn't make it to a show, and so feel free to leave us some feedback that way. If you're wanting to kind of get ahead of this a little bit, what we've got coming up for the rest of July, we might have one or two other things thrown in there as well if there's time, but at the very least, we're going to have our worst movies of 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll have that episode. We're also going to do a review of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the TV series, which started in 1987, but we'll we'll just take an extended episode, and we'll talk about the whole series that ran from 87 to 94. And so if you've got any questions or comments or things you'd like to chime in with for either of those, the worst movies of 87, which the worst movies include Jaws: The Revenge, Leonard Part 6, Who's That Girl? Let's see, I got to go to my list now. It was Who's That Girl, Tough Guys Don't Dance, Ishtar. That might be it. I think that's definitely enough, but that might be it. Okay. So, so if you got any comments on those, comments on Star Trek: The Next Generation, throw those our way. And then coming up in August, I can't even believe we're already talking about August. But coming up in August, well, also real quick, we are starting to plan for our 1988 movies that we're going to be covering next year. So if you've got a movie from 1988 that you would like to have us cover at some point next year, feel free to chime in and let us know. Otherwise, coming up in August, I think that this will kind of swing back into more Pat's vein of favorite movies. We're going to be doing war movies coming up in August. So we're going to be doing Hamburger Hill, Empire of the Sun, Full Metal Jacket, Au revoir les enfants, and Good Morning Vietnam. So
excellent.
Very good movies, and that's going to be a somber month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a whole lot of joking around maybe in August, but
no.
Good Morning Vietnam, though. I mean, that's a we'll throw that in the middle of the month, so it's a little bit of a break from the seriousness of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Sharon is now down here. Do you want to come closer to the microphone? No, she doesn't. Okay. She was when I mentioned that it was warm.
Hi, Sharon.
Bo says hi. Okay. She's down here. Like all of a sudden, I can hear something out of the corner of my ear, and she's over here going, "War, huh? What is good? Oh, absolutely." And this is why I married her.
I was gonna say I knew I liked your wife.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. But she doesn't want to record that on the podcast.
No, she doesn't want to get any closer to the microphone. So
I can see why.
That's fine. That's all right.
She's smart like that.
Yeah, All right, so that's what we got coming up. So if you have any feedback on any of that stuff, if you got 1988 movies that you want to suggest, if you have anything coming up for any of those war movies that you want to let us know about, then feel free to get in touch with us through our website, 30podcast.com, or any of those other social media outlets. Otherwise, thank you both. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And then we will see everybody very soon. Oh, and the other one, we got our 150th episode coming up in not too much longer. I think we're about 9 episodes away from that one at this point. And so we're going to be talking about movie music in that one. So we might might even throw out like a survey on our website just to see if anybody else wants to throw in maybe like their top 5 action movies or top 5 drama movies or top 5 composers or things like that. That's what I've started to do. I started to kind of make a list of this, and I was trying to make it a little more difficult instead of doing a top 10, sticking to like a top 5. So I'll
Lord knows you've been good at those in the past.
Yeah, I know. I'll just say my top 5 it's gonna be like the rating that I give Ash versus Evil Dead.
Exactly.
What rating would you give it out of 5 stars? 7.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one goes to 11.
Right. Well, and see, I'm just channeling Smile Tap. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, in the meantime, thank you for joining us. Come on back next week. We'll be talking about either the worst of 1987 or our Star Trek: The Next Generation show. So we'll have that for you next week. Not sure which one yet, but we'll get that all worked out, and we'll let you know on Twitter and Facebook and all those other places. But in the meantime, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and maybe go take some dance lessons.
Yeah.
Do that. Take some dance lessons. I'm not going to because it wouldn't help.
Fair enough.
I don't think anything would change. All right. Well, in the meantime, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you back here next time.
Bye now.
Peace out.
All righty. I think we're good.
Cool. Yeah, Dirty that man. We just I think it was a good podcast, but yeah, just fell into the trap with I don't think there's much to say. It's a really good movie.
I know. It's like you get to a point and you're like, we like it.
Yeah.
And we like it, and it's got good music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will put together some stuff. I'll put together some stuff for our music one. But I might also put together and just share with you guys a Google Doc of some ideas for things to talk about with the Star Trek one.
Okay.
Definitely. That'd be awesome.
If you guys want to add stuff to it and throw other things in, and because Bo, you're probably going to have more background stuff on it from listening to the other podcasts. And
yeah, I've got some fun stuff that I've been working out in my head.
And if we want to, if it's going to be easier, or I don't know if it's easier or not, but if we want to try to find a time, we can find a time and do this whole thing in person, and just we could really make some of the listeners angry, and we could get a pizza.
That would be outstanding.
And we could just have a pizza and we could talk Star Trek.
I love everything about that.
There we go. Done. We'll figure it out. All righty.
Yes. All right, gentlemen. Well, you guys have a good night.
Take care, Patrick.
It was fun hanging out, and we'll talk to you all real soon.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. See you.
Bye now.
Bye.